Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of Kobold Con. My name is Kendrick or Kendo, whichever you prefer, and it is a joy to be with you all here for day number 2 of the best weekend of the year, in my personal opinion. This is. I hope you all had fun doing organized play, doing whatever it was you were doing up until this moment, and oh. No, wait, hold on. Double checking something just to make sure that things are all good in all places all the time. Why isn't that showing on Twitch? Wait, give me 1 second, everybody, as I double check to make sure that we are. Yeah, no, okay, yeah, no, we're good. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Just have to make sure. I want to make sure that all of you all can see and hear everything that's going on, because today I am joined with Rich August, the project lead for the Tales of the Valiant starter set brought to us by Steam Forged Games. If you were here yesterday, we showed a little. We showed a trailer talking about it a little bit, but Rich, you are the person who helped make it happen. Please tell the people about yourself and your role in making it come to pass.
So yes, so I'm Richard or Rich August, whichever people prefer, and I'm a writer and designer and have been for 8 or 9 years in the TTRPG industry now. In fact, the very first place I ever had anything published was the Kobold Press blog. I
Whoa!
had three or four short little places to visit. That were published there, and so I always have a great affection for Kobold as the very start of my journey, and yeah. So since then, I've worked for a lot of companies, written a lot of stuff, and I was for about 5 years Steamforged head of lead RPG writer and designer, and during that time, we've always loved Kobold. Wolfgang Barr, of course, bit of a hero, and then I have a lot of friends who work with a Kobold. So Alex Stangroom, who is operating head of operations or something like that,
Yeah, our
something fancy,
COO. Yeah.
and Brian Suskind, who I think now is full time with you
Yes.
guys, but wasn't. He was just a reliable freelance hand then, and so we got talking, and we said, "Oh, we'd love to do something together," and we thought this, a starter set, because. Matt Hart, who is the kind of the creative director at Steamforged and one of the founders, has always had a very a big emphasis on making a great starter set. He's always wanted to try it. I've always wanted to try it because we think we love this hobby of ours, but traditionally, games haven't always been brilliant about showing people how to play them.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we are a wonderful, enthusiastic community, and there is nothing people love more than showing people games, getting them involved. But sometimes the games haven't been the best at doing that in terms of what is this thing? What is this weird hobby that we are all sitting around a table making these characters and playing these games? How do you give that to somebody if they are the first person they know to want to play the game?
Yeah.
If they're not fortunate enough, because I don't know about you, Kendrick. I learned because somebody who played games for years said, "Oh, I'll run you a game." Um,
Yeah. I was the person that had to teach myself so I could then teach my friends to play to
you
play games. I
so yeah, you are one of the true heroes of the hobby because there's not enough people really for the number of gamers. Well, we know that
It's
there's been
hard.
research. It's something like, yeah, it's hard,
Yeah.
and games are game, like and starter sets have got a lot better recently. Chaosium do great star sets, and there's loads of cool things coming out. But the D&D starter set, it had a great, Fandelver adventure for the 5e one, but how you actually sat down and played was really confusing.
Yeah.
And if yes, we have things like Critical Role that are really good at showing you kind of what you can expect around the table, but how do you get to that stage? So that was the real kind of impetus with the Tales of the Valiant starter set, to make something that didn't require any preconceived ideas about what role playing was. You could just break it open and it would talk to you as a first timer. So kind of hopefully make the next generation of Kendrick's jobs easier.
Yeah, no, that and like honestly, that's something I could have used because yeah, just like you were saying, like I got into playing tabletop games during fourth edition D&D, and it was because I was watching videos of someone talking about their game, and I was watching like the Acquisitions Incorporated like live plays, and like the Chris Perkins like playing with like the Adult Swim cast or whatever it was that, or it was Robot Chicken producers or something, and it was like I was watching those, but when it came to okay, I need to sit down, I need to learn the rules because I want to make my friends play this game with me. It was so difficult, in fact, that I was reading fourth edition books and I was like, okay, I need to get a like I need to get a character sheet, and I like downloaded a character sheet to print, and I went to make a character. I'm like, oh, none of this makes sense because I had downloaded a 3.5 character sheet trying to use fourth edition rules, and there was just no real guidance of like if I knew nothing, how do I start? And so like
Well,
something like this
and
is really
yes,
cool.
that's and I think that's the real difficulty of RPGs because it is easy when somebody can show you, and it is hard if you are just given a book, especially a big, chunky core rule book
Mm-hmm.
with all these different terms, all this different, paraphernalia, all these kind of these amazing pictures, but you're not sure how does the text and the picture line up. And so we wanted to make something that was as accessible as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd had Steamforce had some experience of making a starter set for Animal Adventures, which we think is a wonderful product. But there were things we lessons we'd learned there, and like I said, we loved when Black Flag was announced and Tales of the Valiant was launched. We thought this is a really great moment for two companies who really respect and have similar values to make something cool, and hopefully that will be that we have. I think we've made something awesome, and I hope everybody else does too.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I personally think so. And so like, yeah, let's get into it a little bit, right? Like, what was it? Knowing that your goal was, I wanted to make something that would make it easy for if you knew nothing about tabletop RPGs, if you knew nothing about Tales of the Valiant, you knew nothing about D&D, anything like that. What was it like designing, and like what was the process and thought process like? What were the things that you thought people were going to need to make it easy for them?
So there were two things I thought were essential. One was an introductory booklet which started from first principles for both players and GMs,
Mm-hmm.
and not to necessarily split those two roles up too early, because I think it's easy to forget that GMs are players
Yes.
and that players and GMs are, that there shouldn't be this kind of separation immediately, that, you're learning together.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be all on the GM to explain everything and know everything. There's players can really help there. And is a friend of mine, Neve Gardner, who's a fantastic designer, made the observation that lots and lots of like how to play TTRPG things have this kind of unspoken assumption in them that being a GM is kind of hard or difficult. And so
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, which it is, but
It
also it's
can be,
amazing
but
fun, and there's not enough sometimes reminding people that this is a great job. You get to do this. This is so much fun.
right.
So I wanted to make sure we weren't falling into those traps, and I wanted to address basic things like how do you talk around the tabletop? Um, and because I think there's this expectation. Um, well, when I started playing, which was a long time ago, we're a long time ago now. In fact, I've got the first starter set I ever bought there, the third edition starter set,
Whoa.
which is really good in some ways. But then things like when you're sitting around with your friends, how are you meant to talk? Do you talk in first person, in third person about your character? My character does this. What's right? What's wrong there? How are you meant to use your character sheet? How
Mm-hmm.
often should you be referring to the rules? These kind of basic things which you learn in play, but which can be really difficult to pass, I think, for first timers and can put people off. You know,
Yeah.
um, if you get very anxious about things, which I know I do, if these little things you would read stories online on Reddit and on Facebook or your comments under videos about, oh, I would love to play, but and I wanted something that was really conversational and would hopefully resolve some of those questions before they became these big blocks in people's heads.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I knew I wanted was uh, a solo adventure for the GM because I think that is a really effective way of helping the GM learn the rules
Hmm.
and making again emphasizing the fact that GM is a player. You are here to have fun. You are not just some kind of, like you're not just there to tell the players off and be like a teacher. You're there to have fun too. So here is a fun adventure for you to do to get the feeling you want your players to have and for you to have it too. So
Right.
we got in all the adventures in the set were written by Oliver Darkshire, who is a wonderful writer and designer. I think he's got a novel coming out very soon. Hugely, hugely talented person who'd done some really, really fun and uh, unusual adventures, a lot on DM's Guild.
Hmm.
He wrote some just clever, unusual stuff, and I knew he was somebody I thought would do a really, really good job. So we kind of talked about what that adventure should look like, and he made something fantastic with it, with the wizard. Well, the wizard's apprentice-ish cabbage, who you get to play him in that first solo adventure if you're the GM, if you're going to learn the rules. Not that you couldn't give it to a player if you wanted. They
Right.
could absolutely do that as well. If you could pass it around the players before you start. But it's really for the GM to get a feel for what the game is going to be like and how you would ask for tests, when you might ask for a test, and kind of break it down. So it's a fun handheld no, hand holding
Yeah.
learning experience. So you are kind of guided through in hopefully what is a fun and amusing um,
Yeah.
way, and then that introduces a few of the kind of key characters who will then recur through the next adventures that the GM can run players through.
That's really cool. And I love that because it's like this very much I again, a thing that even though when I was teaching myself, I had like the base ideas of like this is what I think an adventure is like based off of like the shows that I've seen, but truly I was really just I was really just pulling stuff out of nowhere. Like I was like, I think this is like, oh, let's try this, and it's like it's such a mess. But if I had something that was like, hey, this is when you ask for checks, or here's like even something as simple as like, here's how you like read this adventure and can break it down into its disparate parts of like NPCs and like traps and hazards and monsters, like something like that goes such a long way of not just allowing them to be able to use the product in and of itself, but then take what they learn from that and then go, okay, how do I take the things that I've learned to then write my own notes as a GM for, okay, I'm going to start writing this. Oh, maybe this is how I write this to make it easier for me to read. Like all of that is really, really useful for helping get people into like that mode of, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is what this thing is.
And we're in a it's a, RPGs are such a weird hobby industry. The whole thing is
Yeah.
the I don't know if you're familiar with Map Crow, the YouTube channel. So the
Not
guy
off the
who
top of
runs
my head.
that, they do some wonderful videos if you're interested. Um, and he talks about folk, art, but RPGs being a kind of folk art, and that it's mainly passed along by other people. That's how you learn, and so we forget, I think, how much of it is just received wisdom, how much of when is appropriate for a check to be asked, how when do you do this, how do you do that, so little of it, so little of the kind of really effective stuff is actually written down and codified in a helpful way. So much of it is you just learn, and so it's very difficult to make it accessible. And so it's always an effort. There will be things in the starter set that we will look at in a year or two and think, oh, maybe we should have put that in, and maybe we should have put that in it. We should have said this because that's you forget these things, but
Mm-hmm.
moving in that direction all the time and improving and giving those tools to GMs and players so that everybody everybody feels on the same page and everybody feels able to play. They're so important.
Yeah, that's I'm gonna have to go. I That's a very specific niche that I love. I wrote several papers in college for folklore classes about the oral tradition of teaching RPGs to each other and like
Oh,
how
fantastic.
the like almost like the lineage, like there becomes like a lineage of from table to table as one person learns from one table and then takes what they've learned to take it to a different table, and it kind of creates this branching like almost like family tree of different ways in which people learn how to play games, how they learn how to talk about games. And I need to go check out those videos. That's a that's wildly a very specific thing that I love a lot.
I can't remember the name of the video, but he has a lot of very interesting stuff on there. So even if it takes you a while to find it,
I'll
you'll
find it.
you'll there's lots of cool stuff. But yeah, um, I know he taught game design, and I think there's a lot of stuff in there. So yeah, it's a weird the oral tradition. It's a form of oral tradition, of course it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, and like so, and I think that's why kind of actual play channels have been so useful in some ways of
Mm-hmm.
engaging people and getting them used to what things happen at a table. But then they are such they're kind of like a little kind of sub-reality clinging onto
Yes.
the main the main bubble of
Mm-hmm.
RPG, so that they do things in a very different way from most tables
Yes.
because that's the form of the actual play is that you need things to be different. You need things to be bigger in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
You can there are certain affordances that you get from having highly trained, highly talented voice actors and improv artists
Yeah.
that other tables, don't have. Um, and so you have these kind of divergent traditions where people are bringing one thing into another, and it's just such a fascinating melding pot that I could talk about for hours,
Yeah.
which is probably not what people have tuned
Yeah.
in for if
No,
they want to hear about the star set. So I will shut up.
no, I can. I don't worry. I can tie it all back in because along with that, the increasing nature of like actual plays, but also automation and the ways of like virtual tabletops, D&D Beyond, so on and so forth, and the rise of people getting into this hobby throughout the pandemic has kind of cut off a degree of that oral tradition and lineage because there's so many people who are starting to play for the first, like they know no one else. They've
Mm.
watched Dimension 20, they've heard about Critical Role, they've listened to a thing and they're like, oh, how do I get into this? And then they're like, oh, I'll go to D&D Beyond, or I'll go to Roll 20, I'll go to Fantasy Ground, so on and so forth. And those automated tools do not incentivize necessarily actually reading the book and actually learning the rules. And those automated tools have created, there are a lot of people right now who are playing games who can play the game and they know how to play the game. They don't know the machinations under it. There are many people who, if you gave them a sheet of paper and gave them a book and told them make a 5th edition character, they couldn't do it. And that's not a bad thing. This isn't a value judgment on those people because those tools, those VTTs, are very good. However, it does not incentivize them to actually, like, if you told someone, okay, your dex is 15, what's your modifier? They couldn't tell you without looking at their sheet, and which is fine. Again, not a value judgment. But I think things like the starter set that can walk people through, you give them this thing and it gives them the tools to sit down and be able to parse the book in a way and parse the rules in a way that's readable, digestible, and teachable, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, makes it such a like a magnificent experience to be like, oh, I actually grok what's happening right now. I can actually use this and then teach other people rather than say, oh, just go use the same tool that I used. It in that way.
That is a very interesting observation that I think is entirely correct, and I hadn't identified that. Yes,
I think
to
about
a
this a lot.
degree. To a degree, like, yeah, things like VTTs. I'm going to sound like I'm being really bad at against VTTs now, which I'm not. I'm a big
No,
fan. I
they're
think they
great.
do really important work. But yes, the incentive is to keep going back to the virtual tabletop, not necessarily to the game.
Hmm.
And I hadn't thought about that split before, but you're absolutely right. And yes, and what we want to do is encourage people to engage with the game, with the crunch and the heft of a game, and that there is a kind of a real joy in in not knowing the rules sometimes,
Yes.
in improvising, in just finding a solution just through table talk, and that those are as much a part of RPGs as a big heavy book and a bestiary of 500 awesome monsters, making up something and a GM just making a ruling on the spot and say, well, okay, roll over 15 and you can do it.
Hmm.
That is the key aspect of role playing games, and yeah, embracing the kind of the physical, tactile element of the hobby is a great way of um, understanding those kind of those less talked about bits, those bits that aren't as codified, and so hopefully the starter set, the Tales of the Valiant starter set, is some contribution towards helping people do that.
Yes, I hope so. Because again, I think this is very much a tool that is super helpful. Like, and this can be also, even if you are already an experienced game master, experienced player. If there are people in your life, if you have a kid who's like, oh, I see my parent doing this thing, I want to get into this, maybe with me and my friends, you can get them potentially this starter set and they can sit down and they can go through the mess of learning together, which I think is really really a cool possibility that the starter set opens up.
I mean, I love that. Yes, the mess of learning together. RPGs are messy.
Yes.
Um, they just are because they are limited technologies being employed to do something to deal with something that doesn't have limits because that's our imaginations, and then
Hmm.
then that's exponentially increased by the number of people around the table. Everybody has their own fractal imagination disappearing off in different directions, and a game of 300 pages can't possibly account for all of it.
Right.
But using the architecture of that game, you can miraculously create something on the fly at the table around. It's an amazing experience. And I think that's why so many people are infused by the idea. And the reality, sometimes they can conflict with the reality of a game which hasn't got an accessible way in. And
Hmm.
so that's something the more we can chisel away at those that onboarding ramp, so it's make it shallower and shallower and easier to climb, the better.
Yes, absolutely. um I've got one more question for you, and then I'm going to turn to the chat. Don't forget, you all will get your questions that you can ask. I already see that there are a couple over in the YouTube. I have seen those. I'm locking them in. Don't worry, we're going to get to them. Um, be sure, everyone, make sure the questions that you're asking are about the Tales of the Valiant starter set, since that's what Rich is here to talk about. So there we go. So my next question is, let's talk a little bit about the adventures themselves in here, right? Because there's so many, they're all the tools of like, here's how you learn the game, here's how you run the game, here's how you play the game, here's how your sheets work, all of that stuff. But then there are also adventures in here, from beginner all the way. I don't know from like what level to what level they go. What are those adventures like, and what can players expect?
So you will go from levels 1 up to 4, and they start small and they get bigger and bigger. So one of the great things, I showed this off before. This is the cover to the third edition Dungeons and Dragons start set, which is the first RPG product I ever bought. And what was so great about it was that the adventure book started with you kick in the door and you deal with one goblin. And it is one room, one fight. And then each subsequent iteration of that got bigger and bigger until you had this enormous dungeon. And I wanted to capture that sense of gradation and of gradually becoming more and more familiar with the system. So we start with that solo adventure, which introduces a wizard in a small town who is going to recur as the quest giver, if you like, throughout the rest of those adventures. And they each become more complex while teaching you specific elements of the game rules. So Adventure One will take you through a basic combat. And there's some plot elements there. I don't really want to spoil those because Oliver's put a lot of real kind of character and joy into them that I don't want to ruin the plot. So I'll just talk about them as kind of game tools, if you want.
Yeah.
Then the second adventure is much more about role playing because I think that I certainly felt in other sets, that can be kind of assumed that players will just grasp that. And I think there's some truth in that. It's very easy to kind of just understand, if a GM starts role playing with you, but an adventure that is about that, about talking to different kinds of NPCs, some monstrous, some not, to start to get an idea of the kind of multiplicity of personalities you might experience in an RPG, the different ways of dealing with a problem, which aren't just I hit it with my sword, are sometimes underserved, I think, and we wanted to make sure that there was something there so that players could find and find different ways of dealing with conflicts and know that this was as legitimate a way of playing this game as kicking a door in, hitting something, and taking its stuff. So that's the second adventure. It's a really interesting and quite creepy in parts, but you get to talk to some really fascinating creatures. There's a very cute little dragon. It's great. Then the third adventure is starting to put those together, and you go through a particularly kind of interesting series of little events. You encounter a few traps, a few new monsters posing some very different combat puzzles, and then again, there's this sort of interesting little moral quandary at the end, where you have to work out what should I be doing here? What is this? How do I deal with this?
Yeah.
Uh, and then the final adventure is kind of putting everything together, and it's a proper grand things might go really, really wrong if we don't pull together and act like, big damn heroes. And it's pretty awesome. I don't want to ruin it, but it involves all sorts of horrible creatures in a tomb, and it's a proper classic dungeon crawl with a interesting little twist. So it's the kind of culmination of all this work the characters have done, all the kind of experience the players have accrued, both in game and out of game, to get well on the road to immortality and in the Great Hall of Heroes. So
Yeah.
it's a great suite of adventures, and they do scale. They do each feels really different. Each is teaching you different things, and they are a huge amount of fun to play. I loved play testing them. Oliver did a wonderful job putting them all together, and they dovetail really nicely with the rules, which come in. You get your own a separate kind of rules reference book, so you don't need to just sit and read the rules. You can start playing immediately, but you've always got that thing to fall back on to make sure you know where you are.
That's really good. And I love that it builds on to each other, going from here's how the game works just as the basis. Okay, what happens when you add RP onto the rules that you already know? And then when you start, what is a more advanced version of you're not just interacting with a character, you're having to make choices that affect the story, that affect how you feel about each other, and more. I really, really like that. That is, I feel like a really good start to having to understand this is what a role playing game is or what it can be and how you're supposed to engage with it. That that seems great. Wonderful. Um awesome. Okay, so we've got some questions. Uh
Excellent.
first, I've got a question here. And I know you're saying you don't want to spoil too much about some of the adventures, but one person's asking, what kind of monsters can we expect to encounter in the starter adventures?
Oh, you get a good range.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I mean, there's all sorts. There are hags, there are dragons, there are sphinxes, there are shades, there are wraiths. There
That's
is a
not what I was
lot.
expecting. I
There is there is a lot of stuff in here, and it's definitely not just starting with goblin, goblin, goblin. No, there are enough adventures in the world where you can fight goblins. We wanted to, that some of Kobold's most wonderful books are just filled with monster ideas.
yeah.
I will never forgive whoever it was came up with the Ogreipede, which is
Soba Beast
nightmare
3.
fuel, but
Yeah.
that's the kind of, when you're working with a company with such a rich history of truly perverse monster design, it is only right that you make sure the adventures reflect some of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, you get a real range of interesting and unusual stuff.
Oh, that's really cool. I when you said you were like wraiths, dragons, sphinxes, I'm like, what, for the starter adventure? That's that's gonna be so cool. Oh, that's so cool. Another question that I have here that's kind of linked to that, and is what levels does the starter adventures like kind of take you through?
So you will have every character in the set has their own miniature and their own character portfolio, which is your basically your character sheet, but it folds out and it will take you through the stages of leveling up. So rather than
Mm,
have to get a new character sheet and fill it in, you tick certain boxes, you make a couple of little adjustments, and you're good to go. And you will go from I'm pretty sure, and I may be wrong, it may be 1 to 5, but I think it's 1 to 4.
okay.
And basically each different, each time you get a new class feature, each time you get a new spell, as far as possible, they are on that sheet. Now, some of the spells are a bit too long, and you'll need to check the rules reference. But for the vast majority of things, is all in that portfolio. So when you start picking your characters, you can also look at, well, what am I going to get further on? Who is this character going to become the more time I spend with them? So you can use that to inform who you want to be as well.
Love that. Love that. Got another question here. Does the starter set provide any call outs to show the differences between TOV and 5e if someone were, say, using it to from 5e to be like, okay, let's see how TOV works?
That is a very good question, and no, it doesn't. It
Okay.
presumes you are coming in with almost no knowledge
Mm-hmm.
of RPGs, and I while I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea, kind of conversion set. It wasn't a design goal we had to it. So no, there isn't that. Uh, I mean, the differences are fairly minimal, and I think anybody who is kind of sufficiently well versed in 5e that they are looking for a change will be able to pick up on those changes very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not something we expressly call out now.
Understandable. Um, let's see. Oh, this other question I think we've already answered, but I guess we can say this more explicitly. Are the adventures connected, or do they just have like a run through, like a connecting through line versus one leading into the other?
So you could definitely run them as standalone adventures. Uh, you could skip from 1 to 3 if you wanted, as long as you leveled up. But no, they are designed, they do lead into one another. Your experiences in the previous adventure will help you in the next adventure, or at least inform some of your choices. And your relationship with Rantipole, the wizard, will also, you know, if you've not demonstrated to him your capabilities, he's unlikely to trust you with his final adventure, and you will get to know him more. You get a peek into his background, into his life, into certain poor decisions he's made. So no, they are definitely more intimately connected than just a possible through line,
Hmm.
but they could be run separately too. It was important to us that um, we wanted we wanted something where players felt that what they had done previously mattered, but we also recognized that, people have constraints on time, and people, once they know the rules, might just want to go off on their own and make something up.
Right.
And we didn't want them to feel that you had to do it this way, or that, the experience you'd gained was valueless or something. So it works both ways, but you'll definitely get um, a fuller experience of the box set if you play them in order.
Gotcha. Makes sense. That makes sense. Got another question here. Are For the monsters in the starter set, it looks like there were an awesome set of pawns that came with it.
Mm.
Are they pawns or are they disc tokens for the
They're
monsters?
disc tokens,
Okay.
yes. Which is my reference. I like the pawns, but I prefer discs. It just makes it easier, and it
Absolutely.
doesn't have that weird thing with a 2D picture on a 3D battlefield, which
Mm,
always that works a bit weird for me. So we went with discs, which again, and I'm going to say it, that's what they had in the third edition one, and has always kind of shaped my thinking. And so that was the reason we went with that. I Pathfinder pawns, etc., wonderful, but I personally prefer discs. So that was that decision. That was my call. I'm sorry if you're a pawn person.
mm. No, I
That sounds wrong. I'm sorry if you're a PAWN person when it comes to role-playing games.
I no, I completely understand because I the amount of money that I spent on the fourth edition, like huge, like 100 like token, it was too much money. But they're just useful and they travel much better, and I don't need to stand them. It's yeah, no,
They
I
do, and
understand.
it's much easier to pack away.
Hmm.
They because you can just put them straight back into the thing, and they slot in. It's easier to put in a bag because you've not got to take 2 boxes. But yeah,
No, I
I'll shut up
understand.
about that.
No,
That's my own hobby horse.
no, I understand. Ooh, another question here is: there's a bear hero in the starter set. Who are they? Are they beastkin? Are they bear folk? What's their deal?
Well, the story behind I don't want to spoil too much.
Oh, they've
He's
got
he's
like a
really cool. He's
okay.
got a character sheet with his own backstory in, some backstory and stuff, and he's really awesome. The important thing to know about him is that you can be a beast person in Tales of the Valiant
Yeah.
as a starting species. You can just be that. And look, the Valiant Six are awesome. They're really cool. But I was looking at the book and I say, well, hang on, I can be a bear person. Why why isn't one of these a starting character? And then I mentioned this to our sculptor. I happened to mention this to SFG's lead sculptor, and suddenly there was a bear with a hammer. Um, and that's all I've ever really wanted in a fantasy game. And so so we kind of said, look, we've done these guys. We've also done a bear person with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about us including him as one of the starting four? And amazingly enough, there was no pushback
They're like, yeah,
because
go for it.
I think everybody really wants a bear with a hammer on their tabletop if they can get it. So I don't want to give too many details away about him. I think he's other than he's pretty cool. He's an absolute beast in combat. No pun intended.
Is he a
He is
barbarian? I
he
assume
may be
he
maybe a
may
bear.
be.
He
Okay,
may. I mean, look, Kendrick. If
understand.
you don't know me
Understand.
very well, we've only just met tonight, but there is no way I was missing the pun of barbarian.
No, I
So
understand. Understand.
I
Understand.
am not that strong, and
I couldn't
neither
resist.
is Ginny Loveday, who worked on the set with me. So that was unfortunately inevitable.
You know what? I can't even blame you. I can't even blame you. Um, another question here is, do you know if there will be any connections to any of like the labyrinth or let's say even Midgard, like any of Kobold Press's like core like settings with the
So
adventures?
the setting is deliberately kept really small. It is one small town so that you could put it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It could well go in Midgard. I love Midgard. I think it's a great setting. That enormous, big red Midgard book filled with amazing stuff. Uh, the the way they make Baba Yaga work is fantastic. I love Baba Yaga, and she works so well in Midgard. Um, the set was fixed before Labyrinth was really kind of on Kickstarter, etc. So we didn't have time to include any direct references to that. But the whole point of the Labyrinth is that you can, connect anything to it. It's this
Yeah.
enormous cosmic playground. So yes, the town that is kind of mentioned a few times in there could be anywhere. So it's designed to be droppable wherever you as a GM need it. So, like, let's say you want to start running games in Midgard, you could easily put this town in somewhere in Midgard. If you want to, I don't know, maybe you want to borrow a setting from another game, this town could drop right in. So we wanted to make it as flexible and easy to deploy depending on where new GMs thought their games might be going.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Um. Da, da, da. Oh. Are there NPCs that you can pick up as party members to use as they're going through the adventures, or is it primarily the players going in solo for the different stuff?
It there are some really interesting NPCs, but they are not going to be joining you too often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not to say you couldn't improv that as a GM, but it's not something presupposed by the adventures. There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of interesting choices, a lot of interesting backstory for people, but
Mm-hmm.
um, how that kind of ends up influencing the overall story will be up to the players. Yeah.
Yeah, understandable. Um, the final question that I have here is actually no, I have two more questions. One of
Two
them,
more. Okay.
yeah, one of them is from our community manager. Do you think that these adventures would be suitable for a convention setting? Let's say if someone were taking it, it's like, oh, I want to teach people at a place. Here you go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And depending on the length of slot you had, you could definitely run an hour, 2 or 3 hour slots. Kind of like I would think a 1 hour slot would be perfect for the opening adventure. I think a 2 hour slot you could do the opening adventure and the second adventure. The third adventure would fill a 3 hour slot by itself. And I think the fourth adventure would do the same, maybe, or in a 4 hour slot. So it would be really, hopefully, if as a new GM you wanted to go to a convention and run something you were comfortable with, or for GMs looking to teach people Tales of the Valiant, this could kind of do whatever you needed it to do in terms of typical lengths of convention game slots.
Amazing. Awesome. And the final question I have here, and I don't even know if you would know the answer to this, maybe. Do you know if there were any future plans, any other miniatures or adventure sets that were ever concepted, maybe potentially in the works?
Um, I actually don't. I
Understandable.
hope there will be a labyrinth. I mean, this is just me speaking. I cannot emphasize that enough. I have not heard anything from Kobold about this. I've not heard anything from Steamforged Games about this. This is just Richard as an interested party who likes both companies talking. I would love to see a labyrinth epic encounter because I think you could do some
Ooh.
really cool cosmic weirdness that I would very much like to see SFG sculptors get their hands on, and
Yeah.
maybe somebody like Brian Susskind could write that, or a Wastes of Chaos one, because I love sword and sorcery, and that's a really cool sword and sorcery setting. So that would also make a great epic encounter. But that is, as I say, that's just me talking.
Hey, gang, if you want it, yell enough.
That's the best way.
If you yell
Email
enough,
people.
yeah. If you, okay, maybe don't email us. Don't email customer support asking for the box set, but yell in our Discord, on social media. If you're like, man, I really want a box that does this. Oh, I want a labyrinth box. Hey, if you yell about it, we listen. That's all I have to say. So, Rich, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me about this. This is so cool, and the fact that the starter set is going to exist for both this generation and hopefully future generations of gamers, getting them into
Fingers crossed.
not just TOV but into role playing games in general, I think is so cool. Thank you so much for your work and for talking to us about it.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy.
Of course. And everybody, we're going to take a quick break here, but we will be back to talk about some virtual tabletops. I've got some videos that, well, we'll talk about it then. We're going to be talking about how you can play Tales of the Valiant on some virtual tabletops. Go use the bathroom, get a snack, whatever it is that you need to do to take care of yourself. Please go do that. And we'll be back in longer than a blink of an eye, but sooner than you think. All right, see y'all.
Dust off your finest hat and tighten your suspenders because you're invited down to the riverbank. In this new cozy RPG from Kobold Press, you navigate the intricacies and often the bedlam of polite animal society. Designed by award-winning writer Kij Johnson and featuring art by Kathleen Jennings, each page brims with charm and whimsy. At the table, your decisions matter. So, while animal life might seem as effortless as a stroll in the garden, your social calendar demands much more than a stiff upper lip. Riverbank introduces a new role-playing system, and players must balance their characters' animalistic and poetic sides. Veer too far to either side, and total disaster may follow. So grab your friends and put on your finest plumage. Then come dance a waltz of whimsy with a hint of hilarity and a dollop of drama. The cozy Riverbank RPG awaits. Download the free preview PDF and pledge today on BackerKit.
Whether it's your first adventure, or you're busy planning for the next, or you are proud to be valiant, Drive-Thru RPG is your best support class with Kobold Press's entire PDF library available. Browse through over 300 titles for Tales of the Valiant, Midgard, 5e, and more. Stay brave and bold with Black Flag compatible titles. Explore Kobold Press's famous guides on drive-thru fiction too. Start your adventure today.
Welcome to the Labyrinth, the place between worlds where creation and corruption collide in a cosmic saga of epic proportions. Explore the cosmic background of arcane secrets, confront cataclysmic monsters in the near or deep void, and create entire worlds on a whim. With 14 new lineages, 6 new heritages, 30 new monsters, almost 100 new spells, and 14 mind-bending subclasses, players have an abundance of choices for multiversal characters and storytelling, all completely compatible with the Tales of the Valiant RPG and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Run your most epic campaign ever with the Labyrinth Adventure book, containing 11 new adventures from levels 1 to 8, either as a continuous storyline or take only what you need to weave directly into your own campaign. Claim your key to the Labyrinth and embark on a journey through 10,000 worlds.
Cole just like bites off one of Marlon's fingers.
Yeah! They fell into my trap. My up little guy trap.
I'm Rebecca once.
Well, what a lovely accent you got there.
Jamie thinks that you have time traveled. Just so you know.
There's 2 orphans coming towards you. They got like kind of fanged mouths, glowing green eyes. You can't really make out what kind of monster they are.
Shoot one. But I didn't take a pact. I didn't make any kind of actual formal agreements.
Read some paperwork about this.
Ron and Jamie have seen Marlon kill people.
I mean, Marlon has so many knives and isn't trained to put them in you.
My biggest regret is all the people I helped kill, honestly.
Sure. No, that makes sense.
Second biggest regret is there's some like glass between you. You just see her like punch through the glass and just grab Ron's face and kiss him.
It is the longest, hardest smooch you've ever seen in the history of podcasting, folks.
Necromancer the card game from Kobold Press is designed by Jeff Quick and art is done by Stan. Necromancer is a fast-paced card game of raising legions of the undead. You are a sorcerer commanding these dark legions, and your goal is to overwhelm your enemies with an unstoppable army or sacrifice a circle of underling minions to seize the Well of Eternal Life and declare your victory. Your only obstacle? The pitiable necromancers who think themselves your equal. You can pre-order Necromancer today on the Kobold Press store. Expand combat options for your game with Book of Blades and join the feel of battle over land and sea. This collection of player options for Tales of the Valiant and 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adds a wealth of exciting new material for martial classes, including 14 subclasses, new talents, new weapon options, new combat options for every martial class, and options for fighting in intense single combat duels, wrestling matches, and on mounts. Pre-order Book of Blades today on the Kobold Press store.
muted. There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kobold Con. Hope you're all doing well. It was such a joy talking to Rich, talking about the TOV starter set, which, honestly, I'm not new to Tales of the Valiant or TTRPGs, but honestly, I kind of want to get myself just to kind of get, I mean, first of all, the miniatures. I mean, come on, the miniatures are great. But also, it feels like just something that's like super easy. I mean, the adventures itself, despite the fact that they were beginning adventures, seems like they might just be kind of fun to play. The miniatures seem cool, but also this feels like, I don't know, I'm sure there's someone in my life that would love to get into tabletop RPGs, but just has no idea how to do it. I think the starter set is like a genuinely a really cool place to start off, a really good place to start off, especially because like talking about like the conversations of like, one of the things that he mentioned about like some people don't even know how to have the conversation in game. Like, do I speak in first person? Do I speak in third person? I think having a book that kind of walks you through, this is what an interaction might be like, this is what role playing means, like all of that is so like, if I had a kid, I'd be getting them the TOV starter set so that they could play with their friends. But now I'm gonna have to find someone else's kid to give it to, or I don't know. It just, I mean, I don't know. It just seems genuinely really cool. It sounds like a good anchor point from which to explore the Kobold verse thereafter. I mean, yeah, if you could have a connected thing, like, honestly, yeah. That's, yeah. I mean, genuinely, hey, I have no control over the games that we make. I want to be so clear about that. I'm the media production manager. I do not make the books. They let me write sometimes, which is fun, but if I could push something, that'd be great. That'd be cool. However, that's not what we're here to talk about right this second. Right now, we're going to talk about virtual tabletops a little bit. That's right, folks. Look, I know that playing games at our tables with pens and papers, dice, and all of that good stuff is great. I love it. However, I do live in a world in which the vast majority of the people I play games with don't live in the same state as me. Not the same city. We're not a drive away from each other, which is tragic. However, virtual tabletops have been the great bridge between people in these times. In this digital age, we do have the tools. And as much as I was talking about how sometimes virtual tabletops make it change the way in which we engage with games to be more about the tools rather than the game itself, it is a great tool still to use to play the game, to do a lot of the more menial tasks that might make playing the game a little bit more arduous. A great place to keep notes, great place to determine stats and rolling digital dice, keeping everyone honest about the dice that they're rolling, being able to use maps and all of that good stuff. Virtual tabletops are amazing for that. So some of our dear friends over at Shard Virtual Tabletop and also Mirrorscape, two of our virtual tabletop partners, have made videos to tell you, hey, are you interested in playing Tales of the Valiant but want to do it on a tabletop? Or on a virtual tabletop? Here's a way you could do it. So, I've got some videos for you all, and so you all can take a look. The zoom-ins. The zoom-ins are brutal. What zoom-ins? Oh, am I moving and it's like defocusing from myself, maybe? I don't know what the zoom-ins are. What zoom-ins? Is it zooming in? I don't know what it was. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, it's like defocusing as I put my hands closer. That makes sense. My camera doesn't like me. It likes my hands more. All right, well, let's go. Let's watch some videos about some virtual tabletops, and then we'll talk about all of the stuff that we have on them.
Hey folks, this is Nick, the community manager for Shard Tabletop. I wanted to talk a little bit today about Shard Tabletop and why I think Shard is the best place and best way to play Dungeons and Dragons and Tales of the Valiant using Kobold Press's content. Now, I just wanted to do a quick video showing you how to get started using Shard, both from the perspective of a game master as well as a player, and to show you some of the ways that we've actually implemented Tales of the Valiant on Shard to make it a really seamless experience for folks who maybe haven't tried playing Tales of the Valiant or they want to, but all of their online content is already set up with 5th edition. So we're going to talk a little bit about today the ways that you can use TOV and access the other Kobold Press content on Shard. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, before we get started on how to use Shard, I first wanted to just hop over to our marketplace and show you just the sheer amount of content that we have available from Kobold Press. So there's 80 products in the marketplace now, and that number grows every month. I mean, almost any Kobold Press title that you can think of is on Shard. If it's not already on here, chances are it's on its way. Our 3 primary subscriptions that we expect most folks to use that really want to get the best Kobold Press experience are going to be the player subscription, the game master subscription, and the Tales of the Valiant starter kit. Before I talk about kind of what those look like on Shard, I just want to give you a quick overview of how to use Shard. So we're going to jump on over to the main play page. Okay, so here I am on the Shard homepage. As you can see here, I've actually gone over to my Kobold Press rule set that I created that will default to the Black Flag role-playing system. To get started with creating your first character, you're just going to click on New Character, as you'd expect. It has a random name generator. Let's go with Hickson Tinglum. All right, so one thing you may notice is different here than what you might have seen with a 5e character is we've got lineage and heritage here, as well as background, class, and abilities. Just to show you real quickly how easily you can switch back and forth between the Tales of the Valiant system and the base 5e rules, either 2014 or 2024. If you click on the character's name and you go down to game system, you can see here, if I click on 5e 2024, it changes to species. If I go to the game system and go to 2014, it goes to race. So you can see already just how easily you can switch back and forth. But again, we're going to be focused on Black Flag role-playing today. So for lineage, you're going to see all of the base lineages like dwarf, elf, human, but you're also going to see some of these new ones from Tales of the Valiant like Siderian, Beastkin, Small Folk. I've got to go with Kobold, of course. So we'll select them. For heritage, let's say Wildlands heritage. And for background, how about Outcast? So from here, well, let's pick class. It feels like Druid is what's calling me, but you can see here the Mechanist is the all-new class from Tales of the Valiant, as well as all of the other basic classes you would expect to find. So I'll go ahead and click on Druid. You can, if you want to explore ahead, you can go and look at what the subclasses are. But we're going to go ahead and just select Druid. And now we'll just go ahead and kind of skim through here. I'm going to grab some proficiencies. For talents, which is a new mechanic from Tales of the Valiant, I think Quick is the one that makes the most sense. So you can also default to spell slots as usual, or you can switch to spell points, which is a different system that we can talk about on another video. But we'll go ahead and close out. For abilities, we'll make this quick. We'll go with High Whiz and Charisma. Starting equipment, we'll just go ahead and start with the base Shield and Sickle. And for spells, I have a lot of spells on Shard, and even after I've disabled a lot of mine, some of these are ones that I've created or brought over. So to simplify this, I'm just going to go over to our advanced filter, and I'm going to go to Source, and I'm going to go to the Tales of the Valiant Player's Guide, and just limit us to these base cantrips and spells. So we'll say Druidcraft, Poison Spray, and Shocking Grasp for my cantrips. And if you're someone who's new and you're like, oh, what do these spells do? You can always just click on them, see what exactly it is they do, and then even see what source they come from. So we'll go ahead and say Cure Wounds, Animal Friendship, Fog Cloud, and Thunder Wave. Okay, so last step is to go ahead and pick your token. So you can either go to upload something directly from your computer, you can search the web, or you can pick a token from what you already have on Shard. Now, by default, it's going to go to character tokens. So I could pick like this Kobold here, or ignore this one, Pixar. If I remove character token and I just type in Kobold, I could say pick this Kobold, which is clearly not a token, it's artwork. But if I click on it, it will bring up the menu for me to create a character token from it. So I can zoom out, I can set it however I'd like, I can pick the border. I've got a couple neat ones from our Kickstarter with Ginny D. And then we can go ahead and save it. And that's your character. So from here, you can go to, your actions, your spells, your class features, your equipment. I haven't set any of my description options down here, but you can of course do those as needed, personality traits, etc. And then I can also keep track of my session notes here, write the, whatever the name of the session is or the adventure that I'm in. And when I click new session, it will save the current one and move on to a new one. But yeah, just to kind of show you how the sheet looks, there's a lot here. It's, going from top to bottom. Sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming to see all at once. So you can actually go in and hit these little icons and minimize them. So you get a little bit of a cleaner sheet, but you can still see what's inside these to click on them for when you need them. So like what does Fierce do? Oh, right. I can use a reaction to attack a creature, a larger creature after it attacks me. And then up here, it'll show me all of my different actions. So luck is a new mechanic in Tales of the Valiant. You can click on it if you need a reminder for how it works. Up here, you can see is the tracker for luck. And actually, if I click this little button here, that will use up my luck die. And then if you go over here, you can see like Nature's Gift. I can heal for 2d4 if I use it. I will go ahead and roll that. And now if I were in a campaign with someone, they would see this in chat and they'd be able to actually click on this number and heal for the amount. So it looks like I'm down 2 hit points. I believe this is from increasing my constitution modifier from when we started. So I'll go ahead and click on that button and hit heal 4 HP. And there we go. My hit points have gone back up to 10. And then from here, you're ready to join your first campaign. So let me actually jump over to the campaign mode and then I'll show you what that looks like. So hang tight. In order to join a campaign, we've got to create a campaign. So you click here on new campaign and we're going to pick the adventure. Let's go ahead and limit it to Kobold Press. And it's called Caverns of the Spore Lord. And that will actually by default name the campaign that, but you can change it to whatever you'd want here. It's using my Kobold Press rule set. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. And we jump right into the adventure. So over here on the right is going to be the book, the middle is my menu, and the left is going to be where I can see monsters, creatures, characters, and the chat log. Now, if this isn't how you want to approach your campaign and manage it visually, you can always go ahead and minimize the tracker over there. Like this is great for when you're doing campaign prep and you don't need that. You can also grab this and move it around kind of as you need. So let's say you've just started. You can go here to kind of go through the book. Again, we can minimize this and kind of read through to prep for the adventure. And once we've done that and we're ready to go ahead and invite our first character, we can go to hit invite. You can either email them or you can click copy to clipboard and send it to the person. So okay, here we are back at the home page with my character Hickson. I'm going to go here and I'm going to copy and paste the link to join the campaign. And now it says, thank you for joining. I can either join my existing character, create a new one, or decide later. And we're going to hit join my character to campaign. And we are going to type in Hickson. Go ahead and select. And now Hickson is in the campaign. And here on the right, we can't see anything because the GM has not unfogged the map, has not shared any artwork. And I might want to, let's say, go ahead and start to equip my gear, make an attack with my sickle, and then from there, roll some damage. All of those things will start to show up in chat. Now, I am zoomed in for the purposes of this video, but some folks might play with something more like this so they can see everything on their screen. But yeah, we'll go ahead and zoom back in. Go back to full screen. And so that's what it looks like from the character side of things. So I'm going to go back to the GM to show the map so you can start to see kind of what it looks like from their perspective. Okay, so here we are back at the campaign view from the Game Master's perspective. And let's just pretend for the sake of this example that we're just running a one-person campaign with Hickson as the lone kobold here to enter the caverns of the Spore Lord. Now, if I were to switch back over to Hickson, as you recall, they could not see anything on the map, and that's because it is completely fogged. So rather than run you through like how to run the whole campaign, I feel like the best thing to show you is just how to run and how simple it is to run an encounter on Shard from the Game Master side of things. So let's go ahead and add Hickson to the map. So if you click on the map, there's monster actions, character actions, add map, new encounter. If I go to character actions, I can click huddle characters. And now if I zoom in way down here, you see Hickson, but the map is still fogged for him. So let's say for Hickson's perspective, we're going to go in here and let's unfog the whole little town for him so he can see what the town looks like and the entrance of the tunnel that he's getting ready to head into. But as we go a little bit further, we'll probably want to pick a smaller brush, and let's say we're going to clear out to here, and we'll pretend that Hickson has made his way to this fork in the road, fork in the tunnel, and decides to head into this tunnel because he hears someone calling for help. Now, this is your chance as the GM to go ahead and look ahead and say, all right, well, wait, let me remind myself what they're walking into. So you can click on this little menu here, which shows you a variety of options. Go to where it is in the book. So we're going to do that first. We're going to go to Dustin's Folly. There's a man sobbing for help, and here is some flavor text for you to either read yourself, and you can click here and you can share this as a description for folks who like to see what's being read to them. But you describe what's happening, and then you want to say, okay, well, I'm trying to remember what exactly are they walking into. So I clicked on the little binoculars image, which brings up a view of the campaign. So again, I'm zoomed out a bit, so some of the text is a little bit crammed, but what you can see here is there's Dustin, and they are surrounded by two of these Skull Bloom and a Bloat Blossom. You can click to view their details, and then you can do the same for Dustin. So we can say, all right, what is Dustin? All right, he's only got 8 hit points, so he probably only has like 1 round to survive, if that. So once you've taken a moment to kind of refresh your memory, we can close this. Now you could also modify the encounter at this point. If we wanted to make it a little bit easier, we could click to remove one of these monsters before we get started, but we'll just go ahead and close out here. We will go to our fog brush, and we will clear out the tunnel for Hickson to see. And then from there, I can simply click on the pin and hit start encounter. And now automatically any of the creatures that were from that encounter will populate. It will go ahead and automatically roll their initiative. We can go to Hickson and imagine this is the player doing this, but they click here, they roll their initiative, automatically places Hickson at the top. Now I'm currently playing without the grid enabled. You can show the grid if you would like. So if you wanted to maybe make everyone match up to a specific grid, you can. So we would go ahead and let Hickson start. Hickson wants to give Dustin a chance to get away, so he's going to cast Fog Cloud. So he goes to cast it. It automatically uses up one of his spell slots. It adds it here as a concentration spell with 1 hour duration. And then if I want to add something to the map, I can click this little add spell token. There we go. And that can, now Hickson can call out for Dustin to, run to his voice. So now let's say we move to the Skull Blooms. It's their turn in combat. So we can actually, you can use this to go to indicate whose turn it is. The numbers beneath them also indicate what they are in the turn order. So you can kind of start to think ahead. Okay, I know this guy and this guy are going to go, and then Dustin's last. So we won't run through the whole encounter, but let's say that this Skull Bloom now is going to make an attack, but it's going to be with disadvantage because of the Fog Cloud. He's going to attack, and a 15 would hit Dustin's AC. We can see here he only has an AC of 10. But if I click here on disadvantage, 9! which means he's gonna miss. And so let's just pretend for the sake of Dustin that the others miss as well. And Dustin goes ahead and uses his action to disengage, and he runs back through the fog. You can see it will show you how far you're moving the token. And is able to run back to the safety of the tunnel's entrance, leaving Hickson to either stay and fight or to run away. And he might want to cast, let's say, a Thunder Wave. So just to show you what that looks like, let's say he goes to cast it. All right, so if we zoom in a bit, we can see that it would do 2d8 damage with a 13 Constitution save. So we'll go ahead and have Hickson roll his damage. All right, 5 damage. Now let's again imagine the creatures have moved closer to him and are within range. We could go ahead and we can always click on him and see, all right, these guys are going to be within range. Once I've done that, if I want to go ahead and save the time and not have to click through each one and save on them individually, if I hit Control click, I can actually select them all. I can go and hit Save Con 13, Constitution save. Now I can either just roll the save or I can roll the save, and if I do, they will take either 5 damage, which is the full amount of damage, or they'll take half damage if they if they save, and they'll take 5 if they fail. So we'll go ahead and do that. It will roll all 3 of them. You can see 2 failed and 1 passed. So those ones would go ahead and we would move them back. You know, oh, I still have them all selected, so I'll want to just select, let's say these are the 2 that got hit, move them back the 15 feet, and if you look at their hit points, the -5 damage has already been applied. So Hickson and Dustin make their escape. You're ready to move on to maybe perhaps a role-playing portion of the campaign. So you can always go here, back to the book, go to the table of contents, go to Hull Gig if you need to go back and remind yourself kind of like what's going on back in the town. And then also if you look over here and you're like, well, I need to kind of clean up this encounter, you can simply click Finish. And it depends on how you want to run your campaign. If you're someone who uses Milestone, you can actually click off here and just get rid of the experience points from it altogether. And if you're someone who would treat that as experience points or having escaped from them, you would hit OK. And if you would decide, no, I don't think that we're going to give him the full experience points, let's give him half. Click here and go ahead and hit save or OK. And now it goes back to Hickson. This is what it kind of looks like from the campaign view. It's how you run an encounter, showing you how to invite folks. There's also a treasure option, which can be really nice for when you don't want to have to manage who gets what. You can simply click to pick a treasure and say that they found 50 gold on their way out of the cave, and let's say some studded leather armor from a previous adventurer. So we'll go here, we'll hit add, and we'll save it. And now I can click grant, and that will go into the shared treasure. So now when the players go to look at their shared treasure, they can see, oh wait, what did we get? All right, we've got this studded leather armor, we've got the gold pieces. You can click here and hit distribute, and if we had multiple characters, you could select who gets what, and it will automatically distribute the gold or the currency in an even fashion. But say there's 6 daggers, then you could give 2 daggers to each of the 3 players. There are ways to switch to other maps. So let's say that I wanted to show them an up close of kind of what those monsters look like that they're fighting. I could describe it. I could also click handout, and now they will suddenly see this taking up their whole screen. And if they, for whatever reason, want to go back and look at this later, they can just go here and click it in chat, and they can click to view it, or we can even add it to the journal. The journal is over here, and it's something that is visible to both the players and the game masters. It's a great place to add content from your books that you want them to see. Your log is over here. This is where you're going to keep track of your encounters, chat. And then there's, of course, the audio tag. Now, I have my audio fully disabled for this, but I have hundreds of audio files with music and sound effects and things like that. You can run those in here. You can run different sounds concurrently, tag them so that you've got, horror, ambience, combat, etc. But those are all going to be tracked here. You, the GM, can control the volume. You can also increase or decrease depending on what type it is. And then the players themselves can also change the volume or disable it altogether. All right. Well, that kind of sums up things from the Game Master's perspective. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I hope that you'll consider going to Shard Tabletop and creating that account and giving it a try. And definitely shout out to Kobold Press for being our longest partner and publisher with whom we have the most amount of titles in our marketplace. So thank you, Kobold Press. We love you guys. All right, take care.
Hey, everybody. This is the Mirrorscape team, and we're here today to talk about our VTT and world building platform, which is also called Mirrorscape. I'm actually Grant Anderson, CEO. I'm joined by Don Bland, our COO, and by Eric McIntyre, who is our head of community and also our master map builder. We've partnered with Kobold Press to bring their map packs onto our platform, which is, if those not familiar with Mirrorscape, is an authentic way to build worlds and play in full 3D and augmented reality on your actual tabletop. So this is built from the ground up to use AR on your phones and tablets. We're on iOS and Android, and we're also on Steam on PC and Mac. So you can play completely cross-platform. You can build up your worlds, network in, and play with authentic miniatures. We partnered with Dwarven Forge, Reaper Miniatures, Fat Dragon Games, all the people and companies that you purchase actual physical minis from to be able to bring those down on your tabletop and have some fun. So today we're actually going to show you how we're bringing in the Forest map pack, which is the first map pack that we've started with Kobold Press to bring onto the platform. And you can see Eric building here. Eric, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, sure. So when you buy the Kobold Press map pack, it comes with a whole bunch of pieces, mostly a wilderness setting, but it comes with enough pieces to build all, I think, 24 maps in this set. And what I'm doing here is I've taken out the pieces from our inventory, and I'm putting down the 2D map first, so I have a reference piece, and then I kind of build every setting layer by layer, and I kind of check to make sure it's all coming together. But I really did enjoy this particular map pack because the 24 different settings, you can kind of click them together. I think we could show you something like that later, but when you click them together and actually have a full adventure made of these 24 individual settings. And what I'm doing right here is I picked this this campsite setting, and I'm using the pieces provided in this set, and I'm kind of laying the groundwork here, so to speak, as I build. So right here, you see I'm laying down what's gonna be a path. And once I've got the general outline of the path, I'm gonna drop the whole like floor level on top of it. And you'll see what happens, but there's all sorts of different fun and exciting ways to build custom encounters and these custom maps and everything. And I think I really did enjoy doing this particular set because I do love the outdoor stuff. And we've got these really cool animated fire pieces, and it really lets me explore different settings within the same asset pack. So there's a lot of flexibility here, and you'll see as we build how you can customize and make it even better. So
yeah, and when you brought in the image, so we let you bring in any image that you want. So you can just bring in, standard maps, bring those in, put your 3D minis on there. We connect with Hero Forge, so you can bring in all of your Hero Forge minis. We've also started a partnership where we're starting to bring in some Titancraft minis as well. So you'll be able to bring in and drop all your custom 3D minis right onto the tabletop. You could put these on the images, but as Eric's doing here, he uses it as, kind of a template so that he can build stuff. And you can also use it as negative terrain. And we've got lots of plans for this in the future where you'll be able to bring in multiple images. You can see that he was resizing it earlier and placing it, so obviously you can do that. But we'll be able to bring in multiple images. You'll be able to have animated images. So we're going to be expanding on this feature greatly in the coming months. But it's a great way to bring in and just start building on top of it, especially for dungeons and things like that, which are a little more uniform.
What I love about what you're doing here, Eric, is you're taking something that, most people just play on a flat map, right? And they, have their grid system and everything else. And what you've done is just make it come alive. And so, you take all the different pieces. I can see you're selecting different assets. How does that work? Tell me what the different colors mean.
So what I've done here is what I like to do when I'm building larger sets like this is as I'm building, I'll kind of have these different groups that I know are going to stay exactly where they are. So in this case, I had my tents all grouped up with the fire in the middle. I grouped up all my trees, and then that way when I move them, instead of having to move them one by one and make sure that they sit at the right heights and at the right different layers, they all come down together. So they're all where I want them to be on the same level. So it just makes building a lot faster if I'm able to group those pieces up and lower them instead of doing it one by one. So you'll see I'll kind of make this outline piece. What I always like to do is add a layer of depth, because it gives you a ton of flexibility when it comes to pushing things in the ground, customizing a bit more. Like if I wanted to cut out a hole in the ground here and fill it up with water, I could make a small lake because of that added layer there. And you'll see how I adjust it slightly as we go, but for me that just adds a whole new dimension to it. And you can see here I'm almost done, and it didn't take very long at all. It was a ton of fun to build. And see, now I removed that layer, so that's why the color changed. I wanted to add a few more trees to make it a little bit thicker, so I removed that entire group and I put it down. And then
see, nice little animation on the trees too.
Yeah, it's a nice little wind swing. I'm removing all the groups now because I want to be able to have the flexibility now that we've kind of built that groundwork in to make it how I want it. I'm just right now adjusting the height of the path to make it more defined there, so you can kind of see I'm making it a little bit rougher so it looks more organic. But yeah, it's just there's a ton of flexibility here, and like you could see, like that log right there, it's still sitting up way too high for what I want for it. So you'll see shortly here, I'm picking out some I think I'm picking out minis here. Yeah, I'm about to place some minis here so that we can kind of feel what an actual game would look like, what an actual scenario. So here we got the kobolds coming in and invading this campsite. I'll put out a few heroes shortly, and then you'll be able to actually see those kobolds from the perspective of your player, which is really, really cool.
And then the groups also help do fog of war, right? So not that we'd actually use it here, but you can group those up, and then the GM can hide those, and they'll actually disappear from your player. And then when you enter that area, he can drop those down, and it'll map will build right up from that perspective.
Right, that's exactly. So, making the different groups allows, if people can't see what they're looking at, you can make sure they don't by grouping it up and hiding it from them.
Then here's the secret sauce, speaking of dropping down stuff. So, as I said, this is all built from the ground up for augmented reality. So on your phones and tablets, iOS and Android, you can actually drop it down. We're also just announced that we are coming to Google's new headset. So augmented reality headset, virtual reality headset. So you can actually drop these down on your real tabletop, and they look completely lifelike, where you'll be able to, on the headsets, actually reach out and grab them like they're physical with your fingers and actually move them across the table. It's just magic. It blows your mind.
I mean, this is literally magic. So we also have some measurement tools, that will measure both domes and line of sight and allow you to move with, accuracy within the size of the relative pieces. But just the AR part is unbelievable. And we got some awesome dice. So lots of different dice from different manufacturers, and you just tap on them and you bring them out of your inventory, you roll them, they bounce all over the table with awesome physics.
On your actual tabletop, which was so cool in augmented reality, your digital dice are behaving like real dice on your real tabletop. So this is where it just ties it all together. Our whole thing is like, we're always saying for Mirrorscape that we want to, the word we use is authentic, to have that authentic experience where it's not a video game, but we're using that real terrain from all these real life manufacturers and replicating that here. So you get that feel of being around the table, and you can actually play around the table with your players, especially in AR. And still have the best part of role playing, which is seeing each other and playing with each other.
Yeah, but this is the AR portion is what really sets us apart as something that if you wanted to build this physically, it would probably cost you $150, $200. In our platform, it costs you about $5. So that's part of the big value add that we give. So this is part of all of them right here, placed out on my table.
Much more larger map.
Yeah, and so go ahead. Sorry.
Right. Sorry, I just get excited. Right here, you can see these are what I was talking about before with the 24 individual maps that have been combined together to make one huge adventure with different types of setting. There's different layers. That's a big hole. That hole actually goes down into the table. and you can see the statues and these custom like stairs and tree houses and stuff like that. So it was a ton of fun to build all 24 of these pieces. I love the water. The water actually glistens. It actually like flows. We've got a really nice like a waterfall set in there. And then this is the really cool stuff. I'll let you take it away from here, Don.
Yeah, so you can go out in your backyard or in your living room or wherever you want to go, and you can actually pop inside the map in life-size AR. So we call this life scale. I'm physically walking through the map right now as I'm walking through the grass. And so, you know, there's the kobolds that Eric put down, you know, and this has a lot of implications to the future of gaming. You know, we could probably go into this for another 45 or 50 minutes as to what we want to do with this. But, you know, this is sort of the prototype. But you can see the fire's going, the monk is there, the ranger is there, you know, and it's just so cool. It's just...
And this like really helps you too with like, and war games too. We're getting into wargaming. We announced we're bringing Fallout Factions to Google's new headset and then back to our other platforms. But in wargaming and RPGs, you can see, you know, who you can actually see, who's got cover, how far they are with the measurement tools. But this literally lets you, just the sheer fun of it, walk through the creations that you've made. And people can all crossplay this way. So some people can be in AR and in life scale, and then others can be on their phones or tablets, just laying on the couch. So, you know, thanks for watching, and definitely check us out. We're at mirrorscape.com. All these maps are available as part of the Kobold map pack, the Forest pack, and we'll be looking to bring others, including dungeon packs and others, to the platform as well. So check it out, and thanks for watching.
Yeah,
and join our Discord, please. We are there 24/7. Great community, great bunch of builders, great bunch of gamers. We love new faces, so please join the Discord, discord.gg/mirrorscape.
And the only last thing I would say is that, you know, you can build or you can share. And we have a full categorized website full of hundreds and hundreds of maps that our community has built over the years. And they're all shareable. They're all free. And you can come in and hop in and be part of our community. And just want to say thank you for watching, and thanks for being a fan of Mirrorscape.
Hope to see y'all there. Everybody, cheers.
All right, bye-bye.
Wow, that was so cool, guys. That was so cool. I'm gonna need to get a VR headset. That's what this means. I'm gonna have to get a VR headset because I need to feel what it's like to be in that life-sized environment. I think that I hadn't even thought about what it would be like to use AR for gaming. I think at first, like, my thought process was like, but I'd have to have my phone out and yada yada yada, and it's gotta hold it up, and that'd be weird. And it's like, oh, I can put the phone down whenever I want. I only need it up when I actually need it up. And if I got goggles, it's just always on. But the effects on the trees, it was great. Go check out Mirrorscape, everybody. The link is we'll get the the link has been posted in the Twitch, but let me post it here in YouTube as well. Hey, there we go. And if you are looking for the map tiles for the Kobold Press, all of our Kobold Press map tiles have been made for Mirrorscape. So you can go check that out over on I copied your name as well. That's funny. Awesome. Yeah. Oh, so cool. And also, I hope you all liked checking out Shard. Shard is my go-to VTT of choice for Tales of the Valiant, and I love it. It's so customizable. It's so flexible for everything that I need, and like the ability for me to like reference and homebrew characters in the like it's in the like VTT itself. It's so cool. Go check out Shard as well. In fact, we have so many other VTT partners that didn't even have videos today. We're partnering with more soon, so be on the lookout for that. In fact, let's take a quick look at what VTT stuff we have currently. Oh, so hey, guess what? This is the Kobold Press store, the best place to get all of your Kobold Press needs. You see, we got all the pre-order stuff here, which you should go pre-order Necromancer because it's so cool and good. But you know, I shouldn't have to tell you that because you already know because you were here yesterday and you watched the game. And if you weren't, you should go back and watch it in the VOD. But if you go to the Kobold Press store, there's this little tab here that says VTT, and if you press that, guess what? It's going to filter the Kobold Press store with all of the virtual tabletop stuff we've got. And up here on the top, you can see that we can even filter it more by platform. So there's Demiplane, Mirrorscape, Alchemy, Foundry, Fantasy Ground, Shard Tabletop, Roll20, and then there's just the list of JPEG map packs, which you could go get for whatever your VTT of choice. If you want a map, we've got maps for you. We have so many maps. You get maps from Labyrinth Adventures. You get maps from the Dungeons and Ruins map folio, the Castles and Crowns map folio, or the map pack. Wait, why is that one the map pack and not the map folio? What's the difference? I don't know if there is one. I think, oh wait. No, I think this one might have just been called something different. That's kind of funny. Huh. But you get a map, and you get a map, and you get a map, and you get a map. We all get maps. Yeah, no, of course. We love showing off stuff. So that's all the map packs. But you can also, again, filter by all of our virtual tabletops of choice. Tragically, Tales of the Valiant isn't on Roll20, but we have a bunch of other stuff that is on Roll20 if you are using it. We have the Midgard World Book. We have a bunch of adventures that are built in, maps there, notes ready for you to just go ahead, run the game. All of our monster books, Deep Magic Volume 1 and 2, Wastes of Chaos. We've got a bunch of stuff over here. But if you're looking for Tales of the Valiant specifically, you can find it on Alchemy. You can find it on Foundry, I believe. Wait, hold on. Wait, I said it, but I'm not so... Yeah, you can find it on Foundry. You can find it on Fantasy Grounds. Yeah, look at all that Tales of the Valiant. And then you can find it... Go back. There we go. And you can find it definitely on Shard Tabletop. It's not on Roll20. Tales of the Valiant specifically is on Demiplane. It's just not on Roll20. So you can go get it over on Demiplane, I believe. Wait. Is it on Demiplane? Kim, please correct me if I'm wrong. And then, tragically, not on Roll20. But again, still plenty of stuff there. So we've got so much stuff here for you all. Let's see. So yeah, you can go find all of that over on the Roll20 store. And don't forget... Oh, it has the compendium. Yep, that makes sense. What was I about to say? My brain paused, but I'll remember it in just a moment. Yes. Oh, there's a good reason why you should go buy right now. And that reason is, don't forget that some of the proceeds that we have go to our charity of choice this year for Kobold Con, which is Let's Quest. And so if you're looking to get some VTT stuff or any Kobold Press stuff, go into the Kobold Press store now. Would be great. Wino Roll20. Roll20 has made the decision that they do not have the time or resources to create a system for Tales of the Valiant within Roll20, and so that is that's where we're at. It is tragic but true. But there are so many other VTTs you can use it, and again, I may be biased. I really like Shard. So, that's what it is. Okay, so yes, that's that. We are going to take another quick break here. We'll be back at the top of the hour with Megan Maracle, Mikey Shea, and Mike Wellham to talk about what lies deep within the vault of Monster Vault 2. Which you know is our next monster book. It's coming out, and if you didn't know it, get out from under the rock. Come on, you don't gotta live under the rock anymore. It's 2025. We have buildings. You can live in one of those, and there you can learn about Monster Vault. You might also be able to learn about Monster Vault under a rock. I don't know if you get internet there. You might. Whatever. I'll see you all at the top of the hour. Bye.
Dust off your finest hat and tighten your suspenders because you're invited down to the riverbank. In this new cozy RPG from Kobold Press, you navigate the intricacies and often the bedlam of polite animal society. Designed by award-winning writer Kij Johnson and featuring art by Kathleen Jennings, each page brims with charm and whimsy. At the table, your decisions matter. So, while animal life might seem as effortless as a stroll in the garden, your social calendar demands much more than a stiff upper lip. Riverbank introduces a new role-playing system, and players must balance their characters' animalistic and poetic sides. Veer too far to either side, and total disaster may follow. So grab your friends and put on your finest plumage. Then come dance a waltz of whimsy with a hint of hilarity and a dollop of drama. The cozy Riverbank RPG awaits. Download the free preview PDF and pledge today on BackerKit.
Whether it's your first adventure, or you're busy planning for the next, or you are proud to be valiant, Drive-Thru RPG is your best support class with Kobold Press's entire PDF library available. Browse through over 300 titles for Tales of the Valiant, Midgard, 5e, and more. Stay brave and bold with Black Flag compatible titles. Explore Kobold Press's famous guides on drive-thru fiction too. Start your adventure today.
Welcome to the Labyrinth, the place between worlds where creation and corruption collide in a cosmic saga of epic proportions. Explore the cosmic background of arcane secrets, confront cataclysmic monsters in the near or deep void, and create entire worlds on a whim. With 14 new lineages, 6 new heritages, 30 new monsters, almost 100 new spells, and 14 mind-bending subclasses, players have an abundance of choices for multiversal characters and storytelling, all completely compatible with the Tales of the Valiant RPG and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Run your most epic campaign ever with the Labyrinth Adventure book, containing 11 new adventures from levels 1 to 8, either as a continuous storyline or take only what you need to weave directly into your own campaign. Claim your key to the Labyrinth and embark on a journey through 10,000 worlds.
Cole just like bites off one of Marlon's fingers.
Yeah! They fell into my trap. My little guy trap.
I'm Rebecca once.
Well, what a lovely accent you got there.
Jamie thinks that you have time traveled.
There's 2 orphans coming towards you. They got like kind of fanged mouths, glowing green eyes. You can't really make out what kind of monster they are.
Shoot one. But I didn't take a pact. I didn't make any kind of actual formal agreements.
Read some paperwork about this.
Ron and Jamie have seen Marlon kill people.
I mean, Marlon has so many knives and isn't trained to put them in you.
My biggest regret is all the people I helped kill, honestly.
No, that makes sense.
Second biggest regret is there's some like glass between you. You just see her like punch through the glass and just grab Ron's face and kiss him.
It is the longest, hardest smooch you've ever seen in the history of podcasting, folks.
Necromancer the card game from Kobold Press is designed by Jeff Quick and art is done by Stan. Necromancer is a fast-paced card game of raising legions of the undead. You are a sorcerer commanding these dark legions, and your goal is to overwhelm your enemies with an unstoppable army or sacrifice a circle of underling minions to seize the Well of Eternal Life and declare your victory. Your only obstacle? The pitiable necromancers who think themselves your equal. You can pre-order Necromancer today on the Kobold Press store. Expand combat options for your game with Book of Blades and join the feel of battle over land and sea. This collection of player options for Tales of the Valiant and 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons adds a wealth of exciting new material for martial classes, including 14 subclasses, new talents, new weapon options, new combat options for every martial class, and options for fighting in intense single combat duels, wrestling matches, and on mounts. Pre-order Book of Blades today on the Kobold Press store.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Kobold Con. I hope you all had a good break doing whatever it is you need to do to take care of yourself. Because right now we're gonna spice things up a little bit. We're gonna get rowdy with some monsters, letting them out of the vault. Joining me today are three of the people who helped make the Tales of the Valiant Monster Vault 2 happen. Megan Marco, lead editor and developer, I believe, for the Monster Vault 2. Mike Shea, one of our guest designers for one of the monsters, as well as expander of the Doom Point system, and Mike Wella, one of our many monster designers, and who did a little work on the monster harvesting. By a little, I mean a lot. Thank you all for being here today. How are you all doing?
Doing all right.
Yeah, pretty good. Can't complain. Nice and sunny.
Yeah.
Excited to talk about monsters.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about monsters as well because, I mean, there's some of the best parts about tabletop games, or at least these kinds of tabletop games, right?
Maybe the best part.
Ooh. Trying to stir up some drama already. Monsters.
I think we're a bit biased, though.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit biased. Well, let's talk about let's first of all, if you haven't heard about Monster Vault 2, please, what are you doing? Come on. We've been screaming it from the rooftops. More. These are more monsters. Hundreds of more monsters. Brand new monster templates. What are they called again? The
mobs?
Bundles?
Yes, the bundles. The monster bundles and more ways to use Doom points. There's so much in this book for players, and we've talked about it so much on Scouting Party that it almost feels like, what more could we talk about even? And honestly, there's still so much more, because I want to start us off by talking about specifically some of the monsters in the book, because everyone here has laid their smart creative brains upon a monster, and I have them here for you, audience. I've got some monster art for you, and we're going to be able to talk about more specifics about which of these monsters are, what these monsters are, what they do, and why they're going to be so much fun. I don't remember what order I put them in, so that's going to be a little surprise for all of us. And let's go. Yeah, let's just go to the first one. It's the Frost Jarl. Mike, wait, I said I was gonna send you the picture so you can see it if you're not looking at the Twitch or YouTube. Let me actually, Megan, can you grab it for me really quick, because you
no
the person
problem.
who sent it to me. But yeah, tell us about the Jarl. How did this come to be?
Okay. Well, it was actually part of a package of monsters that I was given to work on, and it basically came about as we needed a frost giant commander, and I took a maybe a slightly different tack at it, where frost giants are more gather in smaller groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when they need to gather in larger groups for a war or something like that, defend a major swath of territory, one of the frost giants transforms into a Jarl and becomes the leader of the army. It's a blessing and a curse, because that Jarl gains, becomes more powerful, of course, gains some abilities, like it can rally the troops, and it can deliver this icy stare that basically immobilizes its opponents. And when the war is won, the war is over, the Jarl stays the same, doesn't revert back to an ordinary frost giant, and then is kind of an outcast among the frost giants. So he or she will end up just kind of wandering the mountains and things like that, avoiding frost giant settlements, and serve as a mercenary for other groups.
That's so cool. That's such an interesting, like, part of frost giant culture, that, because it assumes so many different things. My brain is like what is it like? So is the reason why they become outcast because the frost giants are like, we don't really need someone telling us what to do when we're not at war?
Exactly.
And that's like the main thing you do.
Exactly.
That's so cool. So how is the person who does it, like, chosen, or is it like at random?
It's at random, actually. It might be someone who has had some kind of notable, exploits or some history or something like that. But it's often just whoever looks to be the best candidate for Jarldom, if you will.
That's so interesting. A blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
my brain immediately went to, what if a Frost Jarl, like, they can see the wars kind of pedaling towards the end, and they find a reason to like make it worse to keep it going, so they don't.
That's a
have
possibility. Yeah,
it reminds me of John Rambo.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. kind of. Yeah, kind of is.
Wander, big frost giant wanders into town. He's like, "Hey, I just wanted to find work. I can't find work." I'm like, get out of our town, frost giant.
It's so good. It's so good. Props. It's so good. Does anyone have any questions about the Frost Jarl? There are some questions, which I'll get to the general questions soon, once we get through the rest of this. I'm just looking, I'm looking if nothing comes up. Oh, one person asked, is it a ritual transformation or like an anime like power like protagonist like power up
It's
kind of deal?
It is very much like an anime power up deal. Yeah. So this, probably a sheet of ice descends upon the frost giant, and then I don't have that in my text, but that's how I envision it. The sheet of ice, and then he busts out and is more massive, and has changed armor even. So, rather than wearing the typical hide armor for frost giant, has chainmail instead.
I love that they have magical girl transformation. That's so good. Now I want that for every kind of giant. That's so good. That's really good. Okay. Awesome. Amazing. So good. Okay. I'm going into no, please, Megan.
Yeah, and as Mike said, we wanted a series of these, so we also have like a fire giant commander and a hill giant chieftain. So Mike is just one of the series of these multiple commanders that have like leveled up the giants that appeared in Monster Vault.
That's so good.
We were super excited when we saw the Jarl.
Yeah, the Jarl is really, really good. Oh, okay. So for the next one, we have... Oh, this is mine! Hi, everyone. This is the Ratasil. The Ratasil, as you can tell, is it's not a great looking creature. It's real ugly. But its form matches its function. These little guys are actually, I believe, I can't remember if I make them small or tiny. Do you remember,
They're
Megan?
tiny.
They're tiny. So they're they're about like yay big. They've got smaller bodies, really long tails. And these are amphibious creatures. They, I don't remember if I think I did write this in it. They lay eggs in clutches, kind of like turtles. So they lay eggs, like these clutch of eggs, in like a hole on the beach. And then they hatch. But rather than like just going out to sea, they specifically are looking for food, and they're omnivore. They're like omnivorous in many ways. They'll eat kind of anything that's around, and so they're specifically tend to end up on ships a lot, which isn't great for the people on those ships, because they make their nests not inside of the ship but on the outside of it. And the nests kind of look like barnacles almost. It's kind of this strange organic substance that's a mixture of trash and also whatever it carries in its second stomach, which is like the undigestible material or just the excess material of whatever it eats, and it kind of gunks it up. So that it can use it to build nests on sides of ships so that they're not easily found and can like chew holes into the side and sneak in and such. But also they are very squeamish, and they have this natural defense mechanism, where if they get too scared, they will just like puke up everything in their second stomach, and it smells it's enough to make it to stun you condition wise. And so their kind of like reaction to getting hit is just throwing up, and then and because you're stunned, they can run away without getting attack of opportunity, so they just throw up and run away is the way that they deal with things. It wasn't really meant to be, it's not a huge monster, but it's something that a common person would have to interact with enough that causes issues, because if they're stealing all your food and every time you try to catch them they're like throwing up, it's bad for disease, bad for all these sorts of things. And they lay eggs in the dozens to hundreds. So it's really bad. And it comes in a singular variety and a swarm variety. So yeah, that's what I made. It was originally, this idea came, this was a creature that I had made I was running a pirate campaign, using the ash can for Rapscallion. And because it's a PBTA game, I don't really have to make stat blocks. And so when I was when I think Megan, you were just like, hey, does anyone have an idea for a monster? I was thinking I would like to see what this would actually be like as a creature. And so I was very lucky to be able to make it happen and stat it out. And it was really interesting because I think the TOV version of them are not as devastating as the ones, because there's a certain degree where it's like they were when I was describing them originally, they were in a pit of hundreds of these hatching at once, and it was really bad to a degree where people got really hurt. I think these could hurt people, but I think they're more annoying than anything else. I think I was imagining worlds in which people use them to make traps, so they'll dig holes, transplant a clutch of these into the hole and then cover it up so that you would fall into a group of these. I didn't write that in the thing, but hey, an idea if you wanted to use them like that.
Well, that's convenient. I'm running the Paizo Pirate Adventure Path for some friends. So yes, that will probably make an appearance in the Adventure Path. Yeah.
Please do. Please do. I would love to see
my favorite thing about the lore was that their nests look like barnacles. So most people are like, all right, it's just barnacles on the ship. It's like, no, it's not actually.
Right. Exactly.
That's great.
If no one's got any immediate questions about the Radasil, we'll move right along to Slice. Okay, cool. Next up, the spell scale. I think it's just the spell scale.
Spell scale Vassal.
Vassal, there it is. Tell us about this. How did this come to be? What is it?
It came to be because I wanted one in my own home campaign. I felt bad about that, but then you just said you did kind of the same thing, so I don't feel so bad. But I'm running a Dragon Empire campaign, Tales of the Valiant Dragon Empire campaign, and I wanted to, an idea for draconic knights, knights that work for the Morza, for the dragons, that are loyal to the Morza and are kind of given free reign over the Dragon Empire to do whatever their quests are, right? These are I like the idea of monsters that have quests and go on adventures like characters do. Only those adventures might be go kill those characters right over there.
Right.
So they get quests too. And so I like the idea of these draconic, giant draconic knights that serve the dragons and are scarier than almost anything else that you would see out there, short of the dragons themselves. Mm-hmm. So the idea is you might be dealing with all of the other sort of the various hierarchies that exist among the Dragon Empire, which are extensive. But when these guys show up, you're like, oh no, right? Everyone's frightened of these guys, right? Other than the Morza, everyone's frightened of these guys. Mm-hmm. And I picked the challenge rating because I like to kind of choose a challenge rating where they have a lot of range for how often you can use them. Mm-hmm. CR3s and 4s are fantastic because you can use them across such a wide range of levels, from everything from a boss monster early on to minions, far later. But these, you're not going to have a 3rd level Dragon Knight. So a CR8 is sort of the high-end version of that, where they're a good tier 2 boss. Like a 5th level group facing one of these is going to be a pretty good challenge. Mm-hmm. When you get to 9th or 10th level or 11th level, maybe a little bit earlier than that, you could probably face 2 of them And then, you know, when you start to get into tier 3, now you can start to face them like 1-on-1. And in tier 4, you might get 2-on-1 on these guys. So you can almost see like you can have a progression in a single campaign. You could have a progression of what these guys mean in your group. The other thing I like about them is I tried to design them to be very flexible. You can choose a bond for the knight that's sort of based on the the colors of the powers of the dragons they serve, or the dragons that had sort of created. These are actually, they're kind of constructs, like they're kind of forged, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that means that they can switch their element type. They can be fire, cold, lightning, acid, or poison, which means they are immune to that type of damage, and they inflict that type of damage. But also you can imagine how it changes their appearance or their mannerisms based on whatever the host dragon is that they've kind of connected to. So that way they not only have sort of vertical flexibility in being a CR8 that you can use for everything from a boss up to like a not quite minions, but 2-on-1 sort of thing in late tier 4. But then they also have this horizontal flexibility of, I could have red ones, or I could have gold ones, or I could have silver ones, or I could have green ones. The artwork is for a green one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that would make it a particularly versatile monster. Again, one that I know I want to use in my own campaign, and I don't want to use it just once. I want to use these guys a lot. So, I wanted to kind of design them around that idea, and I think they're great. I tend to lean more towards simple design than complex design for monsters. And yeah, that's a personal preference. Obviously, I don't think all complex monsters are bad, but like, I like a monster where, like, as a GM, when I'm super busy, I don't have to think too hard about getting. It's one of the reasons I love the Tales of Valiant stat block as much as I do, with like the super simplified ability score, ability bonus listing and things like that. So I wanted this one to be like, it's not hard to run, right? Like, it breathes and it hits you with a sword, and but it's got kind of everything. It can breathe, but you can change the type of breath weapon from a cone to a line.
Yeah.
Obviously you can change the element type. So if you want to change that up, or you're facing two of them, and like one's a white one that breathes cold and the other one's a red one that breathes fire, that could be tactically interesting without being complex. It has Draconic Orb, which you can hurl, so it's got a nice ranged attack, so it's not going to get pinned down and not be able to do anything. And it'll hit you really hard with a Dragon Fused Sword. So, I think it kind of nails a bunch of things that I really like in the design that I do. So I was very, very thankful for the opportunity to be able to clean this guy up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was super excited to see this one because I've been following your Dragon Empire stuff.
Yep.
For those that don't know, Mike is running a Dragon Empire game.
Yeah,
He's
it's
got
like the
YouTube
mother of all
videos that
heist
talks about it.
campaigns. It's great.
Super good, yeah. No, I love Dragon Empire. It's my favorite part of Midgard, and it was really cool to see this monster. And I really like your lore bit about how, because you mentioned a moment ago that they were constructed, but the lore is they're constructed from giants. So you take like ogres and stuff like that, and you're imbuing them with this dragon power, and that's how they have the knights or whatever. So
yeah, they
I
sort
thought
of
that was an
transform.
interesting touch.
Yeah.
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 And that's part of their loyalty oath as well, right? Like, when they get that, not only do they physically transform into this draconic thing, but it also sort of sets them as these knights. I really like, and I've done this in other areas too, but I really like the evil knights of the round table, right? Like, the villainous knights, that are just as loyal as they would be, only they do terrible things.
Yeah. There's something even like this almost makes me want to see what are other like legendary monsters version of this. Like what is like a Phoenix's version of this? Or I'm trying to think of other like, or like an Aboleth's version of this, or Vampire's version of this.
Many of the powerful undead, if they have their own,
How, like, what do their paladins look like?
I mean, Aboleths are fun because they're just completely mind controlled, right? Like, the Aboleth just speaks right out of their mouth while they're hitting you with stuff.
And then they get like
that would be
eldritch
freaky.
body horde like transformation.
Yeah.
Would be pretty cool.
Well, we kind of answer that with the templates. I don't know if I'm allowed to segue.
Yeah, no, please.
But we do have a Fey Champion template. That's a template you're supposed to put, or you can put on a creature to imbue it with a Fey Lord or Fey Lady's power. So it's kind of a similar concept of you're creating a champion. Like, you can turn any creature into a champion of a Fey Lord or Fey Lady. So there's kind of a baseline there. So between the Spell Scale Vassal and the Fey Champion template, you could make your Lich Knight.
Yeah, that's really, yeah, I didn't, because, Wow, look at that monster template, so cool. There's so many great things in the Monster Vault too. You see,
I love monster templates. Yeah,
it's like okay, yeah. Let's talk about what are some of the monster templates that people are going to be able to find in the Monster Vault too, and which ones are you most excited? Sorry to make you pick your favorite child, but do so.
When people
loud.
ask me this, what's your favorite? You know, I've worked on almost 3,000 monsters. You can't make me pick a favorite. I'm not picking a favorite.
You can pick multiple favorites if that works.
All of them? The ones that aren't a headache to edit. We'll go with that one.
Ah, keeping it vague. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are some of them?
Yeah, so we've got the Fey Champion, and that's going to be like like I just said, your Fey Lord or Fey Lady is in imbuing a creature. Either it can be like a humanoid or a beast or a monstrosity, imbuing it with its power. And you pick a season, because the Fey are usually tied to seasons and stuff. So the Fey Lord will pick either, spring, summer, autumn, or winter. And the Fey Champion's power changes based on what season it's imbued with. Which I thought that was really kind of neat. Yeah. We've got our Gloomrot Hulk, which is a giant. I think they're mostly giants that have been corrupted by some type of magic. So if you're thinking in the Midgard setting, it'd be like the Wasted West, or if you're going with more of a labyrinth setting, they're corrupted by the void. But either way, there's some type of magical corruption that has like changed this giant in some integral way. So you can apply it to anything. So you can take like the Frost Giant Jarl, who's all by himself out in the mountains. And he's like, well, nobody wants me to be their Jarl anymore. And then the void calls to him and transforms him into this like Gloomrot Hulk, right? So, I mean, you left him all alone out there. Right. What's he going to do, right?
Who are you going to turn to? Obviously the void.
Right? I mean, they've got some sweet deals, They have cookies. I think.
Infinite power, destroyed worlds, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Whatever a forgotten Jarl could
That's
be.
right.
And then I'm sorry?
Boy, will those Frost Giants feel really bad kicking the Jarl out.
That's an adventure right there.
Yeah.
Yep, you got to help them, go and save their Jarl by probably defeating him. But, happens sometimes.
That's what happens.
And then to change it up and not to keep going alphabetical, we've got our tar skeleton. So it's just like if you're thinking like dinosaurs that have been in like tar pits and stuff like that coming to life. So it's all imbued with this like sticky tar and all of that. And you can turn any skeleton into that. It's just dinosaurs are the easy analogy here. And then we have our Hellspawn, so that's going to be imbuing something with like fiendish power. So if you want, I think our example creature is an Ankeg. So like the idea of that its eggs were brought to the lower planes or something like that. Like anything that's imbued with fiendish power, you can apply this template to it and it gains kind of fiendish abilities. We have the many-handed familiar. So for those that are familiar with our snake with 100 mage hands.
Yeah.
It was a fun one. So the snake with 100 mage hands was I believe a backer monster in Tome of Beasts 2.
I think
the monster books are starting to blur together in my head.
I think it's Tome of Beasts. I think you're correct on the book.
Yeah. But I believe it was a backer monster, and they submitted this like snake that's got 1,000 mage hands that are around it, and it's the idea of it's the ultimate thief's pet, right? You got your thieves guilds that imbue it with this power, and it's got mage hands, and it can slide into, the places to like vaults and stuff. So we wanted to take that because it is a fan favorite and turned it into a template. So now any type of like CR, I think 1 or lower, like beast, you can apply this template to. So the whole concept is like a wizard apprentice might have this, or a thieves guild might have this. And we even have guidance for if you want to allow your players to apply this template to their familiars. And then what else do we have? Oh yeah, and then we have the prescient template, which is kind of a future seeing, future sight type of creature. If you want to give it some type of like divination type of abilities, it gets a third eye, its head gets a little bit bigger, gets some psychic powers. And then the last two are the Grim, which is kind of Pet Cemetery-ish, if you're familiar with that story. The concept is, when you're thinking of like small towns that don't have like high-level priests that are hanging out in town, and you don't want the undead to come back, you don't want your people to rise back up when they're buried, you perform this ritual on like the local dog, and you sacrifice the dog as part of it. But then the dog's spirit becomes bound to the graveyard, and it's this like spiritual creature that then attacks anybody that's not a member of the faith that is entering the graveyard. So whether that's undead are rising, or there's grave diggers, or necromancers are up to no good, this spirit is coming out and it's protecting your graveyard. So it's kind of almost a folklorish type of things that, because in the big cities, they can cast Gentle Repose, they can Hallow, they can do all kinds of other stuff to protect their graveyards, but in the smaller towns, they don't have as much, right? So there's this ritual they can perform. And then the last template is the Great Worm. So you can take any ancient dragon and you can make it ancienter.
Ancienter, even ancienter than before.
Yeah, the general concept is that it's kind of like almost like a lichdom type situation. It's an ascension that only certain ancient dragons can do, and it's unique to each ancient dragon. So each dragon has kind of their own personal path to ascension into this great wormness. And it's personalized and it's not easy to do. So becoming a dragon lich is usually a lot easier for most dragons. So most dragons go that route rather than trying to do the great worm route. But yeah, those are our, I think, 8 templates.
Amazing. So good. All right, everybody. You know what time it is. Throw me your questions. There are already some that I saw that I'm going to go right back up to. Oh. House of Toa asks, are there any monsters good for hunting/eating? And are there recipes? This feels like a field harvesting question if I've ever heard one. Let's talk about field harvesting then.
Okay.
So what is the field guide to monster harvesting? I don't know why I shortened it to field harvesting, which would just be farming, I think. But what is the field guide to monster harvesting, and are there any monsters that you think are particularly tasty?
I don't know if I'd want to eat any of them, but because there's a lot of them that have like pokey bits. They're kind of poisonous,
That's true, but so does pufferfish, and people eat that.
You know what? You're not wrong.
If you like consuming perfume, I have the fragrance gland from the vesiculosa from the Tome Beasts.
The vesiculosa.
Yes.
How do you spell that? Because I just want to look it up.
Vesiculosa.
I think okay. I'm just looking it up. But please continue. What is the fragrance? What does the fragrance gland do?
Oh yeah, it's just for the monster harvesting, you can fill it. You can fill a flask with the fluid from the gland, and then when you use it, you can basically use it on yourself to cause creatures to be charmed by you. Like a super powered perfume, if you will.
So okay.
And creatures will move towards they'll move towards where the fragrance is. So you don't have to put it on yourself. You could basically use it as like a distraction.
Other people.
Yeah. Yes. Or on another person. Yeah. Hit someone with it and then have them mobbed by all these admirers or people that just want to be around them because of this alluring smell that they have.
That's the thing about like the like monster harvesting rules that I think is really cool of like the multi-use of some of the things, right? Like you can use it for this or you can use it for this, and I love how it has to engage with like the fictional biology of the creature and like imagining like, so what was the process like of like imagining a creature like being like seeing a creature, reading its stats and its lore, and going, okay, what's inside of that?
Yeah. Sometimes sometimes it was relatively easy, because the lore does a lot of the lifting. Sometimes it'll explain some of the physical attributes of the monster or the thing that that I'm harvesting, or it'll talk about how this monster fits into like an ecosystem. So it's pretty kind of easy to pull that information, extract that information, and put it into the harvesting. Sometimes the lore will indicate they take the skin of this seal creature and or take the oil off of it and use it to basically make themselves slippery or something like that.
That's so.
And then sometimes it's just like you look at the list of abilities that the monster has, and you go, well, where did that come from? So let's say you've got a fire breather, but maybe it's more of like a fey fire breather, and it doesn't have like the internal kind of combustion that say like a dragon would. So it would maybe have like a tongue that was magical or something like that could enable you to powder it or something like that and give you something that you could to breathe fire yourself.
That's so good. That's so cool.
Yep, I eat a fey tongue to breathe fire.
That's hey, that's fantasy. That's fantasy right there to me.
you powder it or liquefy it so it's a little bit more palatable, I guess. So you're not like eating an actual tongue.
Yeah, that's fair. You have to dry it out. You mash it.
Yeah, you treat it so it's not like, oh, I'm eating this tongue.
Toss some vanilla in there to give it some flavor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Each person has their own kind of recipe that kind of works for them.
Yes, which is a lot of the monster harvesting for that reason dealt with more of the monstrous monsters and very few humanoids. I tried to stay away from chopping up something that looks like you or me and harvesting it for material. So
understandable. Sly, I've got a question for you. What size is the spell scale vassal?
Large.
I don't know why I thought they were giant. Them being large somehow makes them feel scarier to me, actually.
Well, and then they can get around easier, right? They're not going to get stuck in a doorway.
They're a bit too mobile if they're large rather than giant.
Yeah. They're large sized.
It's much easier for them to just kneel down, look
they
me
crawl
in the
through
face.
a doorway and stab you in the face.
Yeah,
you're not gonna trap them in a hall, squeezing.
That sucks. A quick question for Megan: does the Great Worm template increase the CR of the dragon that you attach it to?
Yes. Normally our templates do not adjust CR. The Great Worm is actually one of the exceptions to that. We do try to avoid templates messing too much with CR just because that makes it more of a headache for game masters that want to just apply a cool template. But we felt for the Great Worm that was very necessary because we want the dragon to feel ancienter. So yeah, I think it increases it by 5, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oof.
That's a pretty massive increase, but I think that fits for the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has all of the appropriate calculations, so we did a lot of that already for you because that is the hardest part of adding any type of CR is increasing that. How do you increase the damage and how do you deal with all that with the hit points and everything? And so that's all included in the template. So it is one of the larger templates, but for good reason.
Understandable. Very understandable. Which creature or creatures from Monster Vault 2 would you pick to send against a party of spellcasters for those of us planning ahead?
Let me see, Mike, if any of yours are super anti-spellcaster. I know we do have a handful that are anti-spellcaster. Mike, your Hammergeist technically
I was just looking at that. Yeah, because it can absorb force energy, radiant damage, radiant energy, force energy. Because it's essentially, can I spill a little bit about that? Or
this is the time to
okay.
do so.
Okay. It's essentially a ghostly sentient or mostly sentient spiritual weapon, and it goes around and basically just is like it's an uncontrolled spiritual weapon, goes around and it just kind of fuels itself with force and radiant energy and goes around and bops people on the head or whatever it needs to do. And it might find someone who fits its ethos or something like that. It'll kind of maybe tag along for a little bit, be a little bit of an ally for someone who's maybe of the same faith as the cleric that brought it into being in the first place.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think
But
we
yeah,
have a few other anti-undead or anti-spellcaster ones. Most of them I think are undead because I think the Hammergeist, because it's spiritual, we went with undead on that one. And I think, let's see, some other good anti-spellcaster ones. We do have the Forsaken Genie. So that's like an undead genie. Yeah.
The undead.
Yeah, because genies normally, when they die, they become like their material and then they're outsiders, so they go back to their home plane.
Right.
Well, sometimes that process gets a little messed up, or there's necrotic energy involved or something, so then they become undead, right?
Yeah.
I think there might also be some other thing if they like did something bad or something in the process. I can't remember. It's been a moment since I looked at that stat block, but yeah, they're undead genies, and I think they have some anti-spellcaster aspects. But we do have a handful of anti-spellcaster things.
Nice.
We don't want to be too rough on spellcasters, but we got a few options.
Just a few options. Amazing. Oh, I have a quick question for you, Sly. About the Doom points and the expansion of them. What do you think is the if you had to give any advice to someone who is like, I'm trying to think of new things to have Doom points do, what advice would that be?
Make sure you're not using them to take agency away from the characters is probably my number one. Like when you're making a new ability, and you should, right? We offer a lot of advice on how to take the concept of Doom points and expand them, and even improvise with them a bit in the book. But yeah, I would say it's probably easy to fall into the trap of using them to just negate a powerful thing that a character has, and trying to find sort of a perpendicular way of using them to make the challenge appropriate for whatever the situation is without taking agency away from the player that's doing something. I think is the biggest piece of advice. It's also tricky, right? This is a bit of advanced GMing, right? That knowing what that angle is. You don't want to just say, so an easy example would be, you don't say, hey, because I'm going to use one of my Doom points, and that means the dragon's fire breath destroys any resistance or immunities to fire, right? You might say that it downgrades their immunity or resistance to fire. So it still helps that they have it. Right. It's just not as helpful as it might normally be, right? Yeah. And you can kind of figure out what that means. Yeah. Obviously, not using it to take away actions is the easy don't do, right? Right? Don't try to take away the actions that the characters do. Don't just negate the things they do. I had I've been using them a lot in my games. I use them in all my games, and I had an interesting sort of bit of feedback where I had a boss monster, or it was a boss, shocker, as a cultist, and I had a boss cultist, and I knew he was just going to be a lightning rod for everyone wanting to go kill him first. And so he was periodically taking a big pile of damage and then using his own Doom points to throw that damage on one of the other cultists, who then usually just exploded, right? They didn't have enough hit points to handle the amount of damage he was taking. They just blew up. And I was worried, a rogue got a crit on a sneak attack and had thrown a whole bunch of stuff on it. And it was 70 points. It was this massive critical hit. And I had him use, he didn't have so many hit points left. And I had him use his last Doom point to throw that all on one of the cultists who exploded behind him. and he was still around. And after the game, I asked the player, I said, did that feel bad? Like, were you kind of sad? Cause like you could have just shot the cult. And he was like, no, I thought it was great. Like I got rid of the cult. I saw where it went. Like I know what happened.
Yeah.
I know why it happened. I knew that it burned a doom point. So I knew that he couldn't do that anymore. And we got rid of a cultist at the same time. So he's like, I felt like he did not feel like his, this critical hit was negated because and that would be like in one is like if you said like, and I think I've done this where I use the doom point to regenerate 50 hit points. If you did it right after they get hit, that kind of sucks because it's like, great, I hit him for 70 and he just regenerated 50. But if you do it a little later, it's not quite as bad because they're like, well, I don't know whose damage. We all did damage to him. I don't know whose damage got negated by that, but they can recognize it. But to me, the absolute value is when you put those doom point. I use little tokens on the table, and when they see them go away, they're much less likely to be upset about them. It doesn't feel nearly as arbitrary when I say something like, this undead dragon has 4 of these things, and they're going to use them for stuff. They know they're burning through them, and because I usually use them to replace legendary resistance. I don't think we talk about that, but that's one way you can do them, is kind of replacing legendary resistance. And they like that better because I can use them as legendary resistance, which means they go away, but I can also use them for other things, which means they have fewer shots at legendary resistance. And so they feel like they're breaking through a shield on a monster while they're doing it. And so far, I got a group of 6, long-time player, 20 years we've been playing together. They can be very cynical. They'll be very direct if they don't like something. And all of them have been happy with that. They all kind of like roll their eyes, right? I won't kid. When I say like, you see, because I usually try to represent them in the world, right? You see 4 glyphs appear above their head, these blessings of the nameless king. And they're like, oh, great, And then like we had a new player and like, oh, this is just Mike's BS over here, right? But then they all like know how to deal with it. So like, I get a little bit of grief. But, then none of them, I think, and I've talked to them. I'm like, how do you feel about this? Oh, that's way better than, legendary resistances. Like, this is good. This is a good trick. So that might be one. I don't know if we talk about this anywhere, but the idea of like, I don't know how well they work when you stack legendary resistances and doom points together. That's a lot of stuff.
That is.
Right? That's a lot of stuff. Now, but doom points you can use for other things, right? You can use for other people. You don't have to apply them to the big boss monster.
Yeah.
So I think that there's some flexibility there too. But yeah, I'd say my number one thing about designing your own abilities with doom points is thinking hard about how you're going to implement it and not use it to just negate things that the characters are doing.
Amazing. Love that.
Yeah, and talking about other uses for it too, I think my favorite thing in the material you turned over, Mike, was or Sly, sorry. We got 2 mics here.
Yeah, we have 2 mics, right?
My favorite thing was when you were talking about other uses, as in like countdown clocks and stuff like that for the Doom.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a really fun way. I don't know if you want to talk about that more.
Yeah,
but I really like
sure.
that.
Yeah, so like this idea, there's this that concept. I first heard Robin Laws talk about it in Hamlet's Hit Points about upward beats and downward beats, and this is storytelling 101. But in any kind of fiction, you want good things happen and bad things happen and good things happen and bad things happen. If you have too many good things, it's boring. If you have too many bad things, it feels hopeless. And so you kind of want to iterate between good things and bad things. And using doom points are a good example of like a tool that you can use to kind of, interact with those good things happen and the bad things happen. That like, that players can, a bad thing can happen to a player, and the result is that they get you gain a doom point on them, right? As almost like almost like a feature, and that. But then later when they're doing things that are really good and things are going really well for them, that's when the doom point comes out and suddenly the monster's getting more attacks and like, uh-oh, right? So you can use them as that sort of like pacing tool. But yeah, also that idea of like when you're in, if we think about content clocks from like Blades in the Dark and other Powered by the Apocalypse games, that idea of like if you're stalking through a hall and you are failing checks or whatever on a thing, instead of like, hey, all the guards immediately become aware and they all come and attack you, you can instead say like, the doom points are increasing as these failures are going, so that they can see the progress of how well they're doing or how well they're not doing, and then those become an implementable feature that you can then use later in the game. Is that what you were talking about, Megan?
Yes. No, I thought that was really, really fun.
That's really good.
Reading through that.
Yeah, it's such a flexible tool, right? That's one of the things I think is really great about it, why I resonated with it so much.
Yeah. I actually used it in that way not terribly long ago in a game that I was running and I did this I didn't even do it in a way where they failed a check, where I was hinting at the greatness of a danger that was like coming that I super did not want them to fight. I was setting up a thing for later, and I was trying to find the best way to be like, don't fight this thing. And I had one of the characters who's a warlock have their patron like basically like send them like this like it manifested as the sound of like a church bell, like an ominous church bell, like ringing, and like a chill down their spine, and being like, you get this feeling of like your patron warning you of this thing that you're like, that they can only see in like shadow up ahead. And it was like, in this moment right now, right before it gets here, right before you believe it will have the ability to know that you are here, I will let you hide. There's no stealth check involved. You can get low. You can do whatever you want. If you do that without making the roll, I get a doom point. And they chose the doom point. The doom point.
Yeah, right. And they know they're giving you this thing, right? You're
Exactly.
like, oh no.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's just a really, really flexible tool. Oh, sorry. Did you have something you were about to say?
Oh no, I was just saying nice.
Yeah. There's a question on are there any elder elemental creatures in the Monster Vault 2? I'm not quite sure what they mean by elder elemental creatures.
We don't. Well, okay. So we have a lot of elemental creatures. We don't have anything that's like the Fire Lord or the Air Lord or anything like that. I think that's what they're meaning by elemental lords. We don't have anything like that, but we do have a lot more elementals. And then continue with that kind of idea of some of these commander creatures. We do have like a commander salamander. That sounded really weird saying it, but there's a commander salamander. But yeah, that's so we've got a few of the higher CR, but none of them are specifically flavored as the Lord of Air or the Lord of Fire. One thing that we did bring in that I thought was really fun and interesting was alternate versions of Azers or Azers, however you pronounce them. The idea of having this kind of like lesser elemental that's a mixture of elemental and then some type of people. So one of the ones we have is the Soarer. So it's kind of this idea of they are air elementals, but they're kind of elvish and bird mixtures. So kind of like how the Azers have this like dwarven flavor to them, Soarers are these air elementals that have this elvish bird flavor to them.
That's cool.
So kind of, I guess, in the opposite direction of elemental lords, but they're still fun and cool.
I did turn over a pretty powerful swarm of elementals.
You did, yes. The art came up recently, and it looks really cool.
A swarm of them?
The Star Spot swarm, yes.
Please tell more.
Basically, it's like a star explodes, and these sentient elementals composed of the kind of the nuclear energy of that star shoot out and travel to whatever world they happen to hit, and they can do fire damage, just basically this fire and lightning damage, just this leaking this fundamental radiation almost. Yeah, and it's just a swarm of basically little fragments of the star that exploded.
Just the fragments of a star that exploded. Yeah. The things you can say in tabletop RPGs.
Which is obviously not high CR, right? Because stars can't possibly be high CR.
No, not at all.
What is the CR of it?
It is 19.
Oh my God. You know what? If you're fighting stars, sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's a celestial body.
Quite an elemental lord, but it's an exploded star's bits that are coming after you, right? So it's
it's so
similar-ish.
Similar, yeah.
It's so good. Well, thank you all so much for coming down and talk to me about Monsterville 2. Man, that went by fast. That hour went by so fast. But hey, time moves fast when you're having fun. Thank you all so much. Mike, Sly, where can people find you on the internet if you've got more stuff you're doing?
Yeah, slyflourish.com. All my stuff is there.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm on Facebook and Blue Sky. You can find me as Mike Wellham on Facebook and MD Wellham at Blue Sky. I also, it's not my blog, but I've been doing, I've been posting everything on it for a while, but Mythopoeic Rambling .wordpress.com.
There you go.
And you could see a whole lot of other monsters, including Tales of the Valiant conversions for them. So,
hey, that's great. That's so good. Because sometimes I just want it already. Sometimes I just want it already. And so thank you for helping take some of the work out of that. Thank you all so much. This has been a joy. For all of you at Kobold Con, we're going to be... Oh, wait, actually, right now we're about to have a pretty big break because right about 4 p.m. PST is when more organized play starts. So head on over to the Discord, hop into your games, have some fun playing TOV, and we will be back at 7 p.m. PST for an actual play of Tales of the Valiant brought to us by... we had our first... Oh, someone already won the first title of Kobold Con. And that's just... If only one person's got it, that's going to be great. That person gets to flaunt that off. So, hey, if you're playing Wrath of the Bramble King, go in there. I have no idea what the title is, so I cannot in any way, shape, or form guide you into what is the right decision so you can get a title. Just, like, get wacky with it, I guess. Try a bunch of different things. I don't know. It's Thornbearer. Oh, it's called Thornbearer. So use that as your guide. But yeah, we are going to be back at 7 p.m. PST with an actual play of Tales of the Valiant brought to us by our friends over at Crit Hit Chronicle, playing a one shot that the title told to me was "Oops, All Kobolds." So I'm sure it's going to be great. We will see you all then. And until then, don't forget to be bold, be brave, be valiant. And we'll see you then. See y'all.